Chapter 290. Peerless. No one replied. The place was very quiet. The nearby mountains were shattered and stained with blood. Some of the mountain peaks had been shaved off after a great battle, and the cuts were extremely smooth. This was the result of a great battle between peerless experts. White Hair, this grandpa is here again. Come out if you have the gut. I'll beat you to death. The Donkey King hooted. With Chu Feng standing behind him, the Donkey King was extraordinarily daring. He challenged without any misgivings because he hated the White Shark King to the core and had tortured him quite badly. There were many blood-stained leaves on the ground, but there were no longer any experts left. Lead the way to them, said Chu Feng. Fine, I won't be able to vent my anger if I don't kill the White Shark. The Donkey King nodded in agreement. It was rare that he wasn't afraid and wanted to escape. The Donkey King knew that the group of experts with 6 severed shackles had killed their way into the depths of the mysterious space. As long as they followed the traces of the battle, they would definitely be able to find them. He guessed that the White Shark King might have given up on searching after failing to find the 2 oxen. The strongest experts of the marine race have great killing weapons. The Donkey King reminded Chu Feng because he had learned along the way that Chu Feng was going to kill his way in alone. Among them, the sea god tiger was the most terrifying. That golden-haired man had once caused great trouble to the peerless experts of the continent. The yellow cattle had used up an entire golden Arhat talisman but still failed to kill him. One of the black yak's horns had been chopped off by the sea god tiger, and the 2 oxen had almost died in his hands. Apart from that, there was also an octopus king that was as large as a mountain peak. He had once torn apart a mountain ridge to draw out lava and used it to kill his opponent. An octopus bathed in lava had once joined hands with others to injure the white crane of the Sword Palace. Unfortunately, the Donkey King didn't know much. Apart from the peerless experts who have escaped into the depths of this space, are there any others? Chu Feng inquired. The Donkey King nodded. Not long ago, he had seen a number of great demons from Mount Kunlun and many king-level entities from Jiangxi. Where are they? Chu Feng was more concerned about the great demons of Mount Kunlun. Many of them had friendly relations with him, so after learning of the situation, he naturally wanted to help. The Donkey King replied, People like us who haven't severed 6 shackles can only hide here and there. We don't dare reveal ourselves and are scattered in all directions. Chu Feng and the others were very fast. In a very short time, they had rushed out more than 200 kilometers. At this time, they slowed down. This area was a little special. It was a stretch of hills that resembled giant tombstones. Plants were sparse here and there. Huh! Not to mention Chu Feng, even the Donkey King's heart was moved. His nose twitched because he smelled the refreshing fragrance of fruits. Mutant fruit. The Donkey King became spirited. This kind of fragrance was simply too alluring. It had drifted over from afar and was definitely extraordinary. Chu Feng was also in high spirits, feeling a bit expectant. He felt that this fruit should be extraordinary, and even though he didn't want to eat it himself, he could give it to the people around him. After advancing for several hundred meters, they still hadn't found their target. The Donkey King became even more excited. He reckoned that this fruit could allow an entity to evolve to the king level at the very least. That was because the fragrance was able to drift so far. It was definitely extraordinary. This place suppresses divine instinct. It's a bit odd. Chu Feng frowned. He suddenly raised his head. There seemed to be an expert here. He told the Donkey King to keep quiet. There were countless hills in this area and there were natural domains here. However, they could only interfere with one's divine instincts and weren't that terrifying. At the very least, they were far inferior to the ghostly labyrinth Chu Feng had laid down with his 4 bronze pillars. Chu Feng and the Donkey King turned left and right as the scenery before them suddenly changed. A forest appeared behind a huge hill, and the fragrance was drifting over from there. White Hair. The Donkey King gnashed his teeth and stared ahead with an unfriendly expression. A white-haired young man was searching through the forest with a blood-stained longsword in his hand. This place was indeed odd. He had only discovered the other party at such a close distance. It was clear that the interference from the domains was quite powerful. The White Shark King had entered the depths of the forest and could no longer be seen. He has indeed entered the depths of space. We've chased in the right direction, said the Donkey King. He was quite bold at the moment and had no intention of escaping. Chu Feng didn't dare be careless. This White Shark King wasn't simple at all. He already knew that the latter had dealt a sharp blow to the Wudong sect master back when they were ascending Mount Longhu. There was a strange tree in the depths of the forest. It was made of stone and felt no different from a stone whether one touched or struck it. Even its leaves were cold and hard. They wouldn't sway even when the wind blew against them. It was no different from a stone sculpture. But now there was a fruit growing on this human-sized tree. It was gray and similar to the tree itself, but it was emitting a dense fragrance. It was precisely this fruit's fragrance that had spread far and wide and attracted the White Shark King. A number of people had already arrived here and were trying to pluck the fruit from the stone tree. However, none of them had succeeded. That was because there seemed to be a layer of invisible energy around the stone tree that prevented living beings from approaching. Upon closer inspection, there were some strange runes on the ground. Those were domain characters, and it was precisely these runes that prevented outsiders from entering. But with the passage of time, the ground here had cracked and the runes had suffered serious damage. Almost all of them had been pierced through by cracks. It was easy to imagine that if they were intact, there would be no way to approach this place. The great demons of Mount Kunlun were all familiar faces to Chu Feng. There was the Weaver King from the Silken Cave, the Horse King who wanted to marry his daughter to Chu Feng, and the Antelope King whose horn had been broken by Chu Feng. They had finally approached the stone tree after numerous attempts and were about to touch it. Heh heh! It was at this time that a heart-chilling laughter rang out. They turned back to see the marine race expert they were most unwilling to see. White Shark King. The Horse King drew in a breath of cold air. That was because they had personally witnessed how terrifying the White Shark King's blade techniques were. This was a true peerless expert who was rarely matched even among those with 6 severed shackles. The blade in his hand had once left a bone-deep wound on the Wudong Grandmaster's back. It was precisely that blade that had plunged the old Grandmaster into a life-and-death crisis. Of course, the old Grandmaster was also injured because the Octopus King had been harassing him and attacking him fiercely. "All of you scram," the White Shark King said indifferently. He looked quite young and had a lazy appearance. He didn't place the great demons of Mount Kunlun in his eyes at all. At this time, the Horse King and the Weaver King were finally about to touch the fruit after much difficulty. However, they had encountered the White Shark King. This caused their hearts to sink. They had rushed here to seek refuge, but now their hearts had turned cold because a single fruit had attracted a great enemy. The White Shark King said casually, "Scram to the side. I'll deal with you guys after I'm done picking the fruit. Are you guys deaf?" He swung his blade forward with a swoosh. He didn't use any force, but his blade energy swept out in all directions and almost tore the void apart. The Horse King and the Weaver King quickly evaded. This kind of blade radiance wasn't something they could resist. Even though they didn't clash head-on, they still ended up coughing up large mouthfuls of blood. Their bodies had almost exploded upon contact with the white energy. "They're just a bunch of bugs. I didn't even bother to deal with them," the White Shark King said lazily. He was very powerful, and the formless energy couldn't stop him. He had already approached the stone tree. "I'll let anyone tell me where the 2 oxen are. Otherwise, I'll still kill you guys even though I don't care." The White Shark King had a faint smile on his young face. He looked lazy, but no one dared to look down on him. He was a well-known figure among the marine race. "It's a pity that my master isn't here," the Horse King muttered. He could already tell that only an invincible character like the old llama could kill the top figures of the marine race. "Your master is nothing. Most of the creatures on the continent can be killed with a single slash." The White Shark King had a mocking expression on his face. At the same time, he raised his blade and said, "Originally, I couldn't be bothered to deal with small fries like you and those 2 oxen. But since the Clam Fairy has asked me to attack, you guys can only die." He raised his hand and his long blade glowed as he prepared to sweep across. That was because he didn't have much patience. He was prepared to kill them all since they didn't want to tell him where the 2 oxen were. Boom! Suddenly, violent energy surged over. The White Shark King turned around and his pupils constricted. It was a black spear which had transformed into a beam of black light. It arrived in an instant like a shocking bolt of lightning. If he hadn't reacted quickly enough, he would have been pierced through. At the same time, he saw the attacker standing in the distance. He was very young and had directly thrown the black spear. Clang! The White Shark King waved his blade fiercely and sent the spear flying. Swoosh! In the distance, the young man waved his hand and used his spiritual energy to catch the black spear and hold it in his hand once again. "Brother Chu!" the Horse King shouted. The Weaver King was also pleasantly surprised. They hadn't expected Chu Feng to appear at such a juncture. This was simply a stairway to life in a hopeless situation that would allow them to escape the maelstrom of death. "Hee-haw, hee-haw, your grandfather is here again. Come and accept your death." The Donkey King appeared with a swoosh. He jumped to Chu Feng's side and challenged the White Shark King. "This black spear belongs to the Killer Whale King. Did you kill him?" The White Shark King put away his mischievous attitude and became serious. "Horse King, Weaver King, you guys hide a little further away." Chu Feng indicated. He then stared at the White Shark King and said, "It's just a killer whale. The sooner he dies, the sooner he can reincarnate. It's your turn now." "Where's the Clam Fairy?" the White Shark King asked. "I killed her with 1 punch," replied Chu Feng. "I'll kill you." The White Shark King was furious. His temperament was completely different from before. His eyes were as sharp as blades as he raised his dazzling blade and aimed it at Chu Feng. The Donkey King challenged, "Hee-haw, hee-haw, so it turns out you like the Clam Fairy? Damn it, there's no cure for this forbidden love between races. This king will go stew her and eat her later." Boom! The White Shark King took action. He transformed into a beam of white light and rushed over. That terrifying blade energy tore through the earth and created a vast expanse of whiteness. The Donkey King was so frightened that he turned around and ran. Chu Feng was fearless as he stood there. The black spear in his hand pierced forth like a bolt of black lightning. Clang! 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 Sparks flew in all directions as killing intent surged into the sky. This was the first battle Chu Feng had experienced in the mysterious space that was worthy of his attention. The White Shark King was extremely powerful and even surpassed the Killer Whale King. They had exchanged hundreds of blows within a short period of time. The boundless blade radiance resembled thousands of snow-white waves crashing over. Anyone who came into contact with it would be hacked to death. Chi! 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 Beam after beam of snow-white blade radiance flew out. In just a short period of time, they had fought their way out of the forest and into the hills. Boom! Before long, more than 10 hills had been cleaved apart. They were more like small mountains than hills. The White Shark King's blade radiance was peerless and could cleave apart a small mountain with a single slash. Although this was Chu Feng's first time using the black spear, he was fairly proficient with it. That was because the black spear in his hand was an extension of the demon flood dragon fist. It transformed into a black flood dragon that flew up and down, clashing with the long saber and stabbing at the White Shark King's vitals from time to time. At their level, Any attack was extremely terrifying and deadly even with or without a weapon. Bang! The White Shark King evaded Chu Feng's spear thrust. The tip of the spear pierced into a small mountain behind him and directly caused it to collapse, sending rubble flying through the air. The two exchanged over 200 moves before Chu Feng's spear pierced through the White Shark King's right shoulder with a pff sound, causing the latter's entire arm and long saber to fall to the ground. "You killed the Wudong old Grandmaster, so I'll avenge him," shouted Chu Feng. At the same time, he interrogated the White Shark King about whether the old Grandmaster and the others were still alive. "The experts on the continent are all dead. It won't be long before you die as well." The White Shark King's eyes emitted an ominous glint. He wasn't afraid of death. In the end, Chu Feng's spear pierced through the White Shark King's chest and lifted him into the air. Then, with a violent shake, the White Shark King's body was torn into pieces with a bang. He was completely dead. The Horse King, Weaver King, and the others were shocked. They quickly rushed over with complicated expressions. It had only been a short time since they last met, but Chu Feng had become so powerful. "Do you know where the yellow cattle are?" asked Chu Feng. "Yes." The Horse King nodded heavily. Chu Feng was overjoyed. For the fastest and error-free novel reading, please visit Chapter 291. Meeting again. Prior to this, Chu Feng had always been worried. He had already heard from the Donkey King that yellow cattle wanted to forcefully break through. This caused him to feel extremely uneasy. That was because yellow cattle looked crafty and two-faced, but he was, in fact, just a child. His bones and blood energy hadn't fully developed. This kind of action of relying on himself to sever his shackles might cause him great harm. Even in the outer realms and the most glorious great worlds, the successors nurtured by the various holy lands wouldn't dare act so rashly at such a young age. "Yellow cattle, don't act recklessly," Chu Feng prayed in his heart, hoping that yellow cattle wouldn't take such a risk. He knew the situation was dire. Yellow cattle and the black yak had no choice but to cut off their means of retreat. A fragrance assailed the nostrils. The fruit on the stone tree had long since ripened. It looked gray and no different from a stone, but after ripening to the extreme, cracks began to appear on the stone fruit, revealing the bright red flesh within. What kind of fruit was this? No one present had ever seen a stone bear fruit. It was quite a rare sight. Chu Feng wasn't afraid of the invisible pressure. He directly walked over and plucked the fruit, handing it to the Horse King and the Weaver King. Although these people had seen many strange flowers and fruits on Mount Kunlun, they had never seen a stone fruit before. The great demons of Mount Kunlun were too embarrassed to accept this fruit. If not for Chu Feng's group, they would have been killed by the white shark alone. Chu Feng didn't hold back after seeing this and finally put away the fruit. The white shark had transformed into his gigantic true form. His broken body was piled up like a small mountain, dripping with fresh blood. Chu Feng glanced at the runes under the stone tree and pondered for a moment. He even dug up the area but found nothing out of the ordinary. "Let's go." He wanted to go and receive Yellow Cattle's group. The Horse King and the others led the way. They had seen Yellow Cattle's group in a valley before, but it was unknown whether they had left. By the time they arrived at the valley, Chu Feng was disappointed because Yellow Cattle's group had long since left. "It looks like they've retreated." Chu Feng frowned. "The oceanic race is determined to catch Yellow Cattle and the others," the Horse King informed. They could clearly sense that the ones chasing them were just normal kings. Meanwhile, the ones chasing after Yellow Cattle and the others were terrifying characters like the White Shark King and the Killer Whale King with 6 severed shackles. "You killed Hating and offended the South Seas royal family. So many peak-level kings have come out to capture Yellow Cattle and lure you to rescue them," said Weaver King of Mount Kunlun's Silken Web Cave. Chu Feng nodded. It was a fact that the sea race had chased after the 2 oxen because of him. However, since he had come here and his strength had improved greatly, he couldn't allow these people to act so insolently. He had to find Yellow Cattle and the others as soon as possible. We have to be careful. We suspect that a marine race expert with 7 severed shackles has appeared. Otherwise, how could those fierce continental experts have suffered such serious injuries? The Horse King reminded. He was over 3 meters tall and had a shiny bald head. He looked big and burly, but there was also finesse in his roughness. It's very likely. The Weaver King nodded. She was clad in palace attire and was in a rather sorry state. She was covered in blood and would have died if Chu Feng hadn't arrived in time. Chu Feng's expression was solemn. An expert with 7 severed shackles had appeared? This would definitely be terrifying. Of course, this wasn't necessarily true. After all, it was only a suspicion. Neither the Donkey King nor the Weaver King had actually seen it. I hope there's an astonishing mutant soil in this space. Chu Feng was looking forward to it. If he could sever his 6th shackle, he would have nothing to fear even if a terrifying marine race expert were to appear. Chu Feng passed a number of sparkling calabash seeds to the Horse King, Weaver King, and the others, telling them to leave. Now that all the peak-level experts had been cleared out, it was the best time to leave this space. This mysterious space was a battlefield for peerless experts. It would be easy for others to die here. Brother Chu, you must be careful. I hope we can drink to our heart's content at Mount Kunlun in the near future, said the Horse King. Don't worry, we'll leave immediately and invite the old Llama to support you, said the Weaver King. In their hearts, the old Llama was an invincible existence. Very well, you guys be careful too, Chu Feng warned. Even though he had cleared out the rear, he still needed to be cautious. What about me? The Donkey King was anxious and wanted to escape. He had always been a coward and didn't want to stay here any longer. This was especially true after the Tiger Whale King, who had chopped off his tail, and the White Shark King, who had been chasing after him, were both dead. He was even more unwilling to stay here any longer. You're fast enough to be on par with a king-level expert with 6 severed shackles. Come with me to search for Yellow Cattle and the others. Chu Feng left the Donkey King behind without any trace of politeness. Son! The Donkey King cried out in anger. But after seeing Chu Feng's unkind expression, he hurriedly changed his voice to vent his dissatisfaction. Moo moo woof woof, why? I'm just a dish here. I'll be killed if I'm not careful. It's fine as long as you don't stray too far from me, Chu Feng said. He had a certain degree of confidence. If push came to shove the Donkey King into the spatial bottle, he would protect Zhou Quan. In the end, the old donkey lowered his head and set off in low spirit. Be more attentive and find Yellow Cattle and the others as soon as possible. You can also leave as soon as possible, Chu Feng warned. They split up and expanded the search area. Chu Feng didn't even hesitate to let out a long whistle. He was fearless even if it attracted powerful enemies. All he wanted was to find Yellow Cattle as soon as possible. Unfortunately, they didn't find the 2 oxen in the end. The Donkey King also ran over to meet up with him. I think there's a possibility. They might be taking a risk and chasing after the group of peerless experts in the depths of this space. The so-called most dangerous area is also the safest. The Donkey King suddenly raised this idea. Are you sure? Chu Feng was suspicious. I'm an escape expert and value my life the most. According to my understanding of the Manchurian Tiger and Old Black, they'll probably make the same choice. That's because geniuses always think alike. Geniuses with just you two? Being greedy for life and having no moral integrity, they're quite similar in this aspect. Although Chu Feng said this, he also guessed that the 2 oxen might really have chased into the depths of this space to the most dangerous area. That was because the White Shark King and the Killer Whale King were hunting them in the outer regions. Relatively speaking, the depths of this mysterious space were much safer. The other marine race's targets weren't Yellow Cattle and the others. In the depths of space 800 kilometers away, Yellow Cattle was sitting cross-legged within a mountain valley. His clothes were tattered and stained with blood. His little face was flushed red and his blood energy was rising from his head. The energy within his body was surging like a mountain flood on the verge of bursting its bank. The Black Yak was somewhat anxious. He paced back and forth, acting as Yellow Cattle's protector. At this time, the Black Yak was in a miserable state. One of his horns had been broken and there were many wounds on his body. He felt uneasy because he had been forced into a corner. They were being hunted down continuously and had almost died several times. Even if they were to take the risk and enter the depths of space to shake off the White Shark King and the others, they would still be in great danger. They would be discovered by the other marine race experts if they were slightly careless. Although the marine race experts in the depths of space wouldn't specifically hunt them down, they would still have to take action if they encountered them. And those who had come here were all top-grade kings. Not long ago, the Manchurian tiger had risked his life to lure away 2 marine race experts with 6 severed shackles in order to allow Yellow Cattle to enter secluded cultivation peacefully. This time, the Manchurian tiger was quite generous. He didn't betray them and even risked his life. Roar! The Manchurian tiger's furious roar came from several kilometers away. Apparently, he had encountered great trouble and was engaged in a fierce battle. "Goddamn it, this daddy will fight it out with you," the Black Yak muttered. He grabbed his Buddhist staff and walked out of the valley in large strides to support the Manchurian tiger. He turned back to glance at the dispirited golden condor and said, "Protect calf, you little bastard." In truth, the golden condor was also in a miserable state. His wings had almost been torn off and he couldn't fly anymore. He couldn't forget how terrifying the sea god tiger was when he spread his wings and almost slapped him down with a single slap. His killing intent surged to the sky and he was incomparably brave and fierce. If Yellow Cattle hadn't used the golden Arhut talisman at the critical moment, they would have all died. However, the Black Yak's expression changed after rushing several kilometers out of the valley. The sounds of intense fighting were coming from the distance and approaching this area. Oh no! He revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. The marine race experts were fighting with the continental experts and some people had arrived nearby. And now, Yellow Cattle couldn't move at all. He was at a critical moment of seclusion because he was still young and his blood energy wasn't as vigorous. He needed to go all out and couldn't be distracted. How come those peerless experts who had killed their way into the depths of space had come out again? The Black Yak was furious. "Brother Tiger, hold on and hopefully you can escape. I have to stay here and protect Yellow Cattle." The Black Yak held the Buddhist staff in his hand and stayed behind. He hid in the forest, ready to attack at any moment. Very soon, his heart turned cold. This time, there were 4 or 5 people attacking. One was a ferocious sea hawk spreading its wings and chasing a white crane into the distance. Additionally, there was a seagull cooperating with it. Its body was enormous and even more terrifying than a fighter jet. It broke through the sound barrier and emitted continuous explosions as it suppressed the white crane. And on the ground, there were 2 human-shaped marine race experts leaping up from time to time to attack the white crane of the Mount Shu Sword Palace. Goddamn it, so many marine race experts. The Black Yak was truly in despair. Boom! The earth quaked and the mountains swayed. In the distance, a large white snake covered in blood was also retreating in defeat. This was the white snake from Mount Taihang. Its body had once been severed and had been forcibly reattached. Now, it hadn't fully recovered and was being chased by the 2 human-shaped marine race experts. How can we be so unlucky? The Black Yak's face had turned green from despair to despair. This kind of situation was completely over. There was simply no way to block them. If these people were to kill their way into the mountain valley, the Yellow Cattle would definitely be attacked. But now, the little fellow's blood energy was surging and he was fighting with all his might. He wanted to sever the shackles in his body and break through to the critical juncture. Boom! In the air, the white crane suffered a heavy blow. Its feathers were sent flying as it crashed into the mountainous terrain. It fell down, its body covered in blood. It had long since been wounded by a powerful killing weapon. Now, it was besieged and couldn't hold on any longer. There's a fish in the mountain valley that slipped through the net? The marine race experts who had chased them here were extremely sharp. This was especially true for the yellow cattle. He was in the midst of breaking through and couldn't conceal his aura, so he was discovered immediately. A marine race expert in human form laughed loudly and was about to charge in to kill. "Goddammit, Grandpa Yak will fight it out with you!" the black yak roared. He jumped out with the Buddhist chant in his hand and his entire body lit up. The Buddhist chant became even more resplendent. Boom! He swept away the army of 1,000 and attacked the marine race expert. In the distance, Chu Feng could see the glaring light even from far away. He could vaguely see a golden arhat appear in the mountain forest. Boom! The mountain forest exploded. Chu Feng sped up and charged over immediately because he knew what it was. The black yak and the others were using the Buddhist staff to fight with their lives on the line. As he neared, he saw the black yak flying out with blood flowing out of his mouth and nose. The staff had fallen out of his hand. What situation was this? There were actually so many marine race experts. Chu Feng was astonished. "You're all courting death," Chu Feng shouted. With a single leap, he covered a distance of 1.5 kilometers. For the fastest novel reading, please visit Chapter 292. The woodland nearby exploded. Chu Feng traversed 1,500 meters in the air and landed on the ground. Like a landslide and tsunami, the ground, rocks, and giant trees all exploded into pieces, forming a huge wave of earth and rock that surged in all directions. He didn't look like a slender man with a delicate face. Instead, he looked like a missile that was about to raze the forest to the ground. The main reason was that his speed was too fast and his body was strong and durable. Chu Feng was excited because he had seen the black yak's miserable state. He rushed over with great speed. Not far away, the black yak was not only bleeding from his nose and mouth, but also from his eyes and ears. His Buddhist staff had been sent flying. He had used all his strength to launch an attack which had gravely wounded a marine race expert. However, he had been drained of energy and was attacked by the marine race expert. Now, the black yak looked miserable. One of his horns had been broken and his body was covered in wounds and stains of blood. The black yak was shocked to see Chu Feng suddenly land. Then, he revealed an expression of incomparable joy. He hadn't expected him to rush over and kill his way here. At first, he had thought that the odds were against him and that he would die here. At this time, half of the marine race expert's body was almost rotting. He had been hit by the Buddhist staff's energy just now and simply couldn't block it. At the critical moment, he quickly moved to the side and dodged. Otherwise, he would most likely be beaten to a pulp. Mine! The marine race expert's hair was disheveled. He was determined to obtain the Buddhist staff. Just now, he had slapped the black yak from afar, causing him to bleed from his 7 orifices. In truth, the other marine race experts were also staring at him with blazing eyes. They moved together to snatch this great killing weapon. Scram! Chu Feng shouted after landing and attacked at the same time. However, the marine race expert who had been wounded by the Buddhist staff was very decisive. He moved quickly and pounced forward, wanting to snatch the Buddhist staff before everyone else. The black yak's expression changed. He was powerless all over and lay limp on the mountainous ground with blood dripping down. The black yak was unwilling. Even Chu Feng had arrived. It would be too unjust if the marine race expert snatched away his weapon. The Buddhist's staff was not far from the black yak after it left his hand, but he was unable to move. As expected, this marine race expert rushed over. Not only did he want to grab the Buddhist's staff, but he also wanted to deal another blow to the black yak and thoroughly kill him. Chi. The red mist was like a waterfall. Chu Feng used his spirit martial arts to move the palm-sized red flying sword forward to stop the sea race expert. Even though half of this marine race expert's body was in tatters, he was still extraordinary. He shifted his body sideways and dodged the attack. He no longer persisted in killing the black yak. However, his hand that was reaching for the Buddhist's staff did not change. He vowed to seize it. Puff! Chu Feng's flying sword had arrived. It was abnormally swift and violent, leaving a gash on his shoulder. Blood splattered everywhere, and his arm had almost been chopped off. In fact, if it weren't for his quick reflexes, the flying sword would have cut off his head. He dodged at the last moment and avoided being hit in a vital spot. "You're courting death." This marine race expert suddenly turned around and faced Chu Feng. He was vigilant against the flying sword that had streaked across the sky. He knew he had to kill this human first. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the chance to pick up that great killing weapon. This human was too dangerous. "Don't tell me you're that Chu Feng?" he asked. The other marine race experts stopped and scattered in all directions, cutting off Chu Feng's path of retreat. There was also a seahawk circling in the air. The seahawk cried out in the sky, "It's indeed you. The elder dragon king of the southern sea has already issued a decree. Whoever can bring your head to him will be rewarded with a mortal transformation fruit. Haha, we're in luck. Oh, who would have thought that the one who killed Hating would be you? It's not like you have 3 heads and 6 arms. TSK. You do have some skills, but you're rushing in so rashly. Are you trying to throw away your life?" The seagull in the air laughed. "Don't say anything. Let's kill him first," shouted the marine race expert with half his body in tatters. He was somewhat apprehensive. He had just experienced Chu Feng's flying sword and knew how powerful it was. Moreover, he was the closest to Chu Feng, so he was afraid he would be the first to suffer Chu Feng's attack. Selling a favor to the elder dragon of the southern sea and even getting a mortal transformation fruit. It's really worth it. The 4th marine race expert laughed. At this moment, the 4 experts attacked together. Some swooped down from the sky, while others attacked from the rear. "Careful!" the white crane of the Mount Shu Sword Palace warned from afar. It was heavily injured and had almost lost its fighting strength. The flying sword beside it was dim and without light. Apart from the 2 marine race experts attacking the white snake in the distance, the other 4 were surging with killing intent as they attacked in a frenzy. Boom! Chu Feng was cold and violent. He took out a black spear from the spatial bottle and thrust it directly at the weakest marine race expert. Black light erupted. The Killer Whale King's weapon. At this moment, some people were shocked and came to their senses. The Killer Whale King's spear had changed owners. Was there even a need to say what would happen? They felt that they had underestimated Chu Feng, but they were not afraid. Could it be that he could fight against 4 experts alone? Clang! The marine race expert with half his body in tatters produced a sharp broadsword in his hand. It struck the black spear and sparks flew in all directions. At first, he was still smiling coldly. If he could block this attack, the other 3 experts would arrive and they could kill Chu Feng together. However, he was overwhelmed with shock in an instant. The long sword in his hand had been shattered by the tremendous force. Then, the web between his thumb and forefinger became numb and blood flowed out. Swoosh! He rapidly retreated. Chu Feng pressed forward and evaded the attacks of the other 3. He released incomparably violent energy fluctuations and was like a dazzling sun as he chased after the injured marine race expert. He possessed extreme speed and seemed to be teleporting. At this time, He was using the black spear as a club and swinging it forward with both hands. Crack! The marine race expert used the broken sword in his hand to block the attack, but it was shattered in the end. Moreover, the spear, or perhaps it was a club, had already smashed down like a bolt of black lightning. There was nothing left to block it. The moment blood splattered, the marine race expert's body had been smashed into pieces. Half of his body had disappeared. This scene was somewhat terrifying. A marine race expert with 6 severed shackles was about to fall. Thump! At the last moment, Chu Feng followed up with a spear that pierced through his body and poured energy into it, causing him to explode. Everything happened too quickly. The people nearby were shaken. An expert with 6 severed shackles had disappeared from this world just like that? Good kill. The Black Yak cried out excitedly. He had been sulking in Dongduo all this time. Now, he was finally able to vent out his resentment. The Sea Hawk, Seagull, and the marine race expert on the ground were all tensed up. They felt that they had underestimated this human. This was simply too strange. Could it be that this person was comparable to the sea god tiger? He was a complete mess of bravery. Chi. Beams of energy shot out one after the other. Although the 3 experts were somewhat apprehensive, they didn't hold back and were prepared to kill Chu Feng. With a flash of black light, the black spear in Chu Feng's hand disappeared. He produced a long, snow-white blade from his spatial bottle and held it horizontally in front of him to block their attack. His killing intent surged to the sky. Chu Feng was testing out which weapon suited him best. The White Shark King's weapon. At this moment, the Sea Hawk and the others were truly alarmed. They felt a chill run down their spine and were somewhat afraid. That was because the White Shark King was a top-grade expert. He was much more powerful than the other marine race experts with 6 severed shackles. Even a peerless expert like the sea god tiger would look up to him. Swoosh! The Sea Hawk was the first to charge into the sky. He was extremely apprehensive and didn't dare to face the attack head-on. You! The Seagull was astonished and his attack power naturally decreased. Where are your guts? The marine race expert on the ground was infuriated. Were they going to let him face this human alone? The snow-white blade radiance blossomed and the area was overflowing with killing intent. This marine race expert hadn't been struck by the Buddhist staff and wasn't injured like the previous expert. Hence, his combat strength wasn't weak. The intense collision shattered the mountain forest. So much so that 2 or 3 of the nearby mountain peaks were chopped off by Chu Feng's energy blade radiance. This marine race expert was covered in blood and wounds. He had already reached his limit after enduring dozens of moves. Boom! In the air, the Sea Hawk opened his mouth and spat out sword radiance. The Seagull also spread his wings and shot out his feathers. It was as if hundreds of divine arrows were raining down and charging at Chu Feng. Clang! The sound of the bell lingered in the air as a large bell appeared outside Chu Feng's body. The shingy golden bell barrier protected his body, preventing external attacks from harming him. It was at this time that the 2 bird kings in the air swooped down toward the Black Yak and the White Crane from the Sword Palace. They wanted to capture the 2 of them. The seagull that was charging toward the Black Yak was immediately blocked by Chu Feng's flying sword. Even the arrows he shot out were shattered by the sword radiant. Kill. It was also at this time that Chu Feng erupted with ocean-like blood energy. Energy poured out from all the pores on his body, and his whole body was resplendent. The long blade in his hand transformed into a beam of light that resembled the Milky Way and slashed toward the struggling marine race expert in front of him. This was an all-out attack that was as fast as lightning. The opponent simply couldn't dodge, and could only resist with all his might. The dazzling blade radiance split open the opponent's weapon and split the marine race expert into 2. Blood rained down as the 2 halves of the body fell to the side. Chu Feng raised his saber and dashed through the 2 halves of the body, rushing towards the White Crane to rescue it. The palace master of the Mount Shu Sword Palace wouldn't have fallen to such a state if he hadn't been heavily injured by the killer weapon. After all, he was a true peerless expert whose imperial sword technique had reached perfection. Clang! Seeing the Sea Hawk pouncing over, the white crane barely managed to use the flying sword to block the enemy at the most critical moment. This was enough for him to buy some time. Chu Feng charged over and slashed at the Sea Hawk with the bright long blade in his hand. The Sea Hawk let out a long cry and spread its wings with all its might. It didn't dare to face the attack head-on, but it was still touched by the blade radiance. Feathers swirled in the air and a rain of blood fell. Its abdomen was injured and almost cut open. Chu Feng, just you wait. The Sea Hawk cried out in anger. It had already avoided Chu Feng's edge and didn't want to fight him, but in the end it still suffered a blow. Chi chi chi. The blade radiance bloomed as Chu Feng turned to attack the Seagull King. Not far away, his flying sword was slashing around the Seagull King, entangling him and suppressing him so that he couldn't spread his wings and soar into the sky. The Black Yak wiped off his cold sweat. Just now, the Seagull King had almost stretched out his claws to tear him apart. Fortunately, Chu Feng's imperial sword technique was very powerful and his spiritual arts were superb. The Seagull King attacked with all its might and wanted to escape. However, the blade radiance swept over. Chu Feng leapt up and rushed into the air, slashing fiercely at it. The white lightning-like energy blade radiance was simply too terrifying. It couldn't block it. At this time, Chu Feng used his spiritual energy to move his body. He was almost suspended in the air as he fought with the Seagull King. At the same time, he used his flying sword to suppress it and prevent it from escaping. After dozens of moves, Chu Feng slashed out with his blade and cut the Seagull King into two halves in midair. The two halves fell down amidst a blood-curdling screech, completely dead. How dare you! At this time, the Black Yak was seething with anger. He was both shocked and afraid as he shouted loudly. That was because the Seagull King had actually returned and swooped down towards the nearby valley. It flapped its wings and attacked downwards, raining down beams of energy. Not to mention the inside of the valley, even the mountain walls were cracking and collapsing with a rumble. They were about to submerge the valley. The Seagull King didn't escape because he wanted to kill the yellow cattle after discovering that it was sitting cross-legged in the valley. That was because the Seagull King knew that these people were very close. "Seagull, you're dead for sure," Chu Feng roared. He had long since sensed that the yellow cattle was there and had sent the Donkey King over in advance. But now, he was incomparably worried. After killing the Seagull King and resolving the Black Yak's crisis, he rushed into the valley and took out his black spear. Within the valley, the Donkey King used the spatial bottle Chu Feng had given him to store the yellow cattle and the boulder into the pristine jade bottle. He didn't dare touch the yellow cattle's body for fear of obstructing the yellow cattle's breakthrough. Hence, he could only move as a whole. Afterwards, the Donkey King and the injured Golden Condor King dodged left and right within the valley, avoiding the energy beams pouring down from the sky. At this time, the mountain walls in all directions had collapsed like a breached dam and were gradually submerging the entire valley. Chi! At this moment, Chu Feng hurled out the black spear which transformed into a bolt of black lightning and shot into the sky. The Seahawk King did its best to evade, but one of its wings was still pierced through and a small part of it was blasted off. The excruciating pain was unbearable, and it couldn't help but let out a long cry as it flapped its wings and fled into the distance. Roar! Chu Feng roared angrily. He didn't want to let the bird go. He ran with extreme speed and chased after it on the ground. This bird king had already escaped, but it still dared to come back and harm the yellow cattle. This caused the flames of fury to surge within him. Chu Feng's entire body seemed to be pulsating with light. His speed was simply too fast as he rushed up the mountain and soared into the sky. He was about to catch up to the Seahawk King. the Seahawk flapped its wings and flew into the sky. Its heart was filled with terror and it was scared out of its wits. It had never seen such a fast person who could actually catch up to it. "Come down!" Chu Feng shouted loudly as he shot out his flying knife. The sword pierced through the sky and pierced through the Seahawk King's body, causing it to let out a mournful cry as it fell down. At the same time, Chu Feng had also rushed to the highest point in the sky and was about to fall. He brandished the long blade in his hand with all his might as the energy beams erupted. In the end, the Seahawk King let out a miserable wail as it was cleaved in the sky by Chu Feng's blade. Its body was severed and its corpse fell down amidst a rain of blood. Within the mountain forest, the two marine race experts who were attacking the white snake were terrified after witnessing the battle just now. This was especially true after they saw Chu Feng soar into the sky like a demonic god and behead the Seahawk King with a single slash. Both of them turned pale and fled without a word. Chapter 293. There was a small problem with the spatial bottle in the previous chapter, so it was fixed immediately. A small portion of the faster readers saw it. The two marine race experts were indeed frightened out of their wit. That person was simply too terrifying. He had killed the Seahawk King with a single slash like a god descending from the heavens. They fled in the blink of an eye and didn't even look back. One had to know that these two were experts with 6 severed shackles. Yet they were so terrified. It was obvious how much the battle just now had affected them. Within the valley, the collapsed cliffs had buried a large area and boulders were tumbling about. The Donkey King was cursing and swearing incessantly. He had been smashed until his face was swollen, and some of his earlier wounds had opened up and were drenched in blood. Fortunately, he had managed to evade all of the Seahawk King's energy beams. The Golden Condor King was listless. The blow just now wasn't light. One of his wings was already fractured and could no longer fly. Fortunately, their lives weren't in any danger. Just now, the Donkey King had done everything he could to keep the spatial bottle stable. He didn't allow it to sway for fear of affecting the yellow cattle within. Thump! In the distance, the Seahawk King's corpse fell to the ground, causing the forest to shake violently and dyeing the ground red. With a swoosh, Chu Feng appeared within the dilapidated valley. He was somewhat nervous, worried that something might have happened to the yellow cattle. The Donkey King immediately showed Chu Feng his bruised and swollen face. He said that his hands were steady despite being smashed by boulders weighing tens of thousands of kilograms. The yellow cattle was unharmed. Chu Feng received the pristine jade bottle and carefully released the yellow cattle. The latter's eyes were tightly shut and suffused with blood energy. It was truly a frightening sight. Chu Feng had personally experienced how difficult it was to sever one's shackles by relying on oneself. The yellow cattle's current state made him worried. After all, it was too young and too risky. Doubtlessly, the yellow cattle was circulating the special breathing technique. It was completely focused and isolated from the outside world. Its spiritual will was almost completely sealed off. Chu Feng transmitted his voice carefully, hoping to wake it up and tell it not to risk its life. However, the yellow cattle didn't seem to notice. After some thought, Chu Feng also circulated the mysterious breathing technique. The two techniques were of the same origin, and the energy pulsation was the same. Finally, yellow cattle had a reaction. He slowly opened his eyes. He knew what had happened. His blood energy gradually converged, and the restless energy returned to normal. He sighed. That was close. He was too eager for quick results and was too engrossed in it, almost causing a great disaster. In the end, he was still too young and was not suitable for such a domineering breakthrough. Moreover, he had almost lost himself just now. Pooh! Yellow cattle coughed up a mouthful of blood. It was still injured. Its body swayed and it fell backwards. This gave Chu Feng a fright and he hurriedly supported him. Could it be that his foundation was injured? This was not good. Even the Donkey King was quite nervous. He was worried that the yellow cattle had met with misfortune. "I'm fine. I just need to rest for a while. Fortunately, I woke up. Otherwise, if I really walked the path of darkness, something big might have happened." Yellow Cow was scared. At this time, the Black Yak's howl came through, startling Chu Feng. He thought that a powerful enemy had come to kill him again. "Quickly, go and save him." The Black Yak could finally move. He ran into the collapsed valley anxiously and shouted at Chu Feng, telling him to go and save the Manchurian tiger. At this time, the white crane from the Mount Shu Sword Palace had also caught its breath and entered the valley. The white snake had also arrived. Their injuries were extremely serious and needed time to recuperate. Chu Feng had many questions to ask them and wanted to understand the inside story. But after seeing the Black Yak's anxious appearance, he hurriedly asked him to lead the way. "It's over there. I heard it roaring not long ago, but there's no movement now. You guys wait here. Be careful." After saying this, Chu Feng leapt up with a boom. He raised his snow-white sword and rushed dozens of kilometers away, increasing his speed to the extreme. The forest was lush and verdant, but large patches of trees had fallen in certain areas. There were also many places where not even a blade of grass could be seen. It was as if a meteorite had struck the land. The high temperature had melted and crystallized the potholes on the ground. This was the result of a confrontation between king-level entities. Chu Feng's heart sank. He ran for hundreds of kilometers in one go and saw some of the Manchurian tiger's fur along the way. It seemed it had been injured. This time, the Manchurian tiger was unyielding and didn't defect. It fought fiercely with the marine race and drew the enemy away for yellow cattle. This surprised even Chu Feng. Now that he knew the tiger's injuries were not light, he was somewhat anxious. Finally, after chasing for almost 100 kilometers, Chu Feng heard the tiger's roar. Chu Feng traversed the mountain ridges, leaping over a mountain peak with each leap. He was finally able to relax as he got closer. At least the Manchurian tiger wasn't dead. It's not easy for it to be so unyielding at times. It actually fought until now. Chu Feng's opinion of the tiger had changed. In the past, he always felt that it didn't have the explosive temper of a king of beasts. The tiger's roar was very loud in the distance. However, very soon, Chu Feng was stunned and his expression froze. That was because he heard the Manchurian tiger's roar. "Stop fighting, I surrender. I'm convinced. I've decided to forsake darkness for light. Stop fighting. This king is prepared to surrender and conspire with the marine race. Stop now. I have friendly relations with your marine race. I met many kings in the Jiangxi region. Goddamn it, did you hear me? I want to surrender." Chu Feng was completely speechless. This tiger's nature was hard to change. It didn't care about its reputation at all and was begging to surrender. However, the two marine race experts weren't willing to pay attention to it. They were bent on finishing it off. "Can't you see that I look similar to the sea god tiger? We're related by blood. You two idiots are offending the dignity of our race. Goddamn it, I've met two idiots who can't even speak a word. There's no way to communicate. How can I live? Save me. Who can save this king?" The Manchurian tiger howled dryly. Chu Feng couldn't stand it any longer. He walked out of the forest and rushed toward the barren area. "Stop fighting, I'll take you to Chu Feng. I know where he is, I'll sell him to you," the Manchurian tiger shouted. "God damn it." Chu Feng's expression was wooden as he appeared at the edge of the battlefield. "Oh, what the hell?" the Manchurian tiger cried out in alarm after seeing him. He simply couldn't believe his eyes. He rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things. "Awoo!" he howled like a wolf as he scuttled about. "Brother, you've finally appeared. Hurry up and kill the enemies. I've almost beaten these two bastards to death. They're too weak to withstand a single blow. I'll leave the rest to you." The Manchurian tiger ran frantically toward Chu Feng. Didn't you want to sell me? Chu Feng said with a dark expression. The Manchurian tiger was about to burst into tears. He had actually been discovered. He hurriedly explained, "Am I that kind of person? I won't do such a thing. I'm just stalling for time and fooling around with those two marine race bastards." In fact, Chu Feng's impression of the tiger wasn't bad this time. If the Manchurian tiger had really surrendered, he would have directly led the two marine race experts to capture the yellow cattle. This time, in order to protect the yellow cattle, he had taken the initiative to lure the two marine race experts away. On the other side, the two of them both had a head of green hair, and even their skin was green. At the same time, it also had a metallic luster. Let me tell you, these two bastards' bodies are too sturdy. We can't move them at all. The Manchurian tiger reminded. Clang! The long saber in Chu Feng's hand flickered with a cold light. He dragged the snow-white weapon and walked forward fearlessly. The White Shark King's weapon. At this time, the two experts were finally moved and revealed expressions of dread. However, they still attacked and didn't shrink back. Boom! One of them directly collided with Chu Feng. His entire body blossomed with a green radiance. Clang! Chu Feng slashed out with his saber and slashed at one of them. Sparks flew in all directions, but he was actually unable to split the man apart. This greatly astonished him. The other person also moved. He transformed into a beam of green light and met Chu Feng head-on. Truly bastards! Chu Feng was speechless. It turned out that the Manchurian tiger wasn't just cursing people. These two monsters were actually sea turtles. Ordinary people really couldn't break through the defense of these two sea turtles. The tortoiseshell was astonishingly sturdy. The Manchurian tiger shouted from behind, "I was chased earlier and my vitality was greatly damaged. That's why my combat strength has been reduced. Otherwise, I would have killed these two bastards long ago." Chu Feng circulated his breathing technique and went all out. He didn't believe that he couldn't cut open the tortoiseshell. White mist came out of his mouth and nose as the pores all over his body glowed. "Kill!" Chu Feng shouted as the radiance of the long saber in his hand became increasingly resplendent. "Run!" The two sea turtles had a bad premonition and turned to flee. "Where do you think you're going?" Chu Feng shouted. It had to be said that these two sea turtles were quite extraordinary. Their speed was astonishing, but they couldn't escape after encountering Chu Feng. After being caught up, another round of killing and collisions ensued. Chi! In the end, Chu Feng's snow-white long saber slashed out with a terrifying beam of light and split one of the sea turtles into two halves. Drenched in blood, the sea turtle transformed back into its original form. "I'll fight it out with you," the other person shouted. This time, Chu Feng was even more resolute and merciless. He slashed out more than 10 times with all his might and finally killed the remaining sea turtle. The Manchurian tiger was fairly astonished. After not seeing each other for a few days, Chu Feng's strength had improved greatly. He had even killed the two invulnerable sea turtle kings. It was truly shocking. "You've become much stronger after becoming a monk for a few days? Next time, I'll also go to the Great Woods Temple to eat vegetarian and pray to Buddha," the Manchurian tiger mumbled. But he was fairly happy to have escaped danger. He asked why Chu Feng had come and what powerful characters he had encountered. "Let me tell you, I have a very powerful relative called the Sea God Tiger. You must be careful, it's very dangerous," the Manchurian tiger reminded. "One's from the sea, the other from the land. Why are you randomly recognizing relatives?" Chu Feng cast a sidelong glance at him. The two hurried back to the valley and met up with Yellow Cattle's group. Chu Feng had too many questions he wanted to ask them. This time, the experts of the eastern, southern and northern seas have joined hands to deal with us. It can be said that they have many experts. The White Crane sighed. Previously, Hei-Ting and the three-eyed marine race expert Qian Yu had come from the southern sea. This time, the three seas had joined forces and attacked together. Now, the experts of the three seas had joined forces and appeared at the same time. They were incomparably powerful. There's someone from the continent who's defected to the marine race. They've cheated us, the White Crane of the Mount Shu Sword Palace said with certainty. The marine race and the land race had cooperated when they first ascended Mount Longhu, but they also clashed from time to time. The enmity between them was quite strong. At first, the peerless experts of the continent had discussed and prepared to set up an ambush. That was because they had discovered a natural domain and wanted to lure the marine race inside. As a result, one of the creatures on the land went to inform the others, and everything became terrible because of this. The marine race had a great killing weapon in their hands. The Wudong Grandmaster, the Mastiff King and the others, are they still alive? Chu Feng asked. Perhaps they are, the White Crane replied. Chapter 294. The White Crane of the Mount Shu Sword Palace also didn't know who it was that had defected to the enemy and leaked information to the marine race. This was the fatal blow and put the continental experts in danger. That was because they didn't know which of the people around them was the source of the disaster. Hence, even though they were surrounded and hunted down, it was difficult for them to unite against the enemy. They were all secretly on guard, afraid of being ambushed by the people around them. Chu Feng frowned after hearing this. This wasn't good news. Afterwards, he thought of the Peacock King, the Golden Crow, and then the Xingyi Grandmaster Su Qing. All of them made him suspicious, especially the white-robed Su Qing. He had a close relationship with the three-eyed marine race expert Qian Yu. The Peacock King escaped with heavy injuries. He almost died and his heart was torn apart. He had suffered a fatal blow from the marine race's killer weapon. The White Snake spoke. Her condition wasn't very good. Her body had been cut in two and was only forcefully joining them back together. It would take several days for her to recover completely. Even those who had severed their sixth shackle and were full of vitality, not everyone possessed miraculous recovery techniques like Chu Feng. They couldn't recover within a short period of time. As for the white-robed Su Qing you spoke of, he didn't come to Mount Longhu and never saw him, said the White Crane of the Mount Shu Sword Palace. Even the youngest Xingyi Grandmaster Su Qing hadn't come with the group and couldn't possibly know about their plan to deal with the marine race. The Manchurian Tiger mumbled. They wanted to lure the marine race into the domain but were killed instead? This is too depressing. The situation was urgent at that time. The marine race wanted to ambush us even if we didn't take action. Hence, our preparations were too hasty and our secret was leaked. That's why we suffered such heavy losses. The White Crane of the Mount Shu Sword Palace had been struck by the Divine Flood Dragon Talisman and almost died on the spot. The Wudong Grandmaster and the Mastiff King were also in a similar situation. They had all been injured by the marine race's terrifying killer weapon. Otherwise, they wouldn't have fallen to such a state. Chu Feng was prepared to kill the marine race experts and rescue the continental experts. He had come on Lu Tong's request and also wanted to return the favor by rescuing the experts from the Hollow Jade, 8 Visions, and roaming Jade temples. As for the Wudong Grandmaster and the others, they were even more duty-bound to save them. The White Snake and the Master of the Shushan Sword Palace told Chu Feng some things to take note of. They told him which of the sea tribes were terrifying and which had great killing weapons. Chu Feng nodded. This information was very important to him. You guys should leave. The depths of this space are too dangerous, Chu Feng said. The people here were all seriously injured and couldn't fight a bloody battle. Okay, take care of yourself, Manchurian Tiger answered very happily. The Black Yak glared at him, saying that he had no sense of loyalty. He turned to Chu Feng and said, I'll go with you. At the critical moment, I can wave my staff and deliver a fatal blow. I'll go too. I can also wave the staff once. Yellow Cattle nodded, unwilling to leave. Woof, woof, I'll go with Brother Tiger. I won't drag you guys down. The old donkey ran off into the distance with a whoosh. The black yak glared at him. Yellow Cattle also threatened to go with him, saying that he could also wave the staff once and deliver a fatal blow at the critical moment. The Buddhist staff was a very special weapon. Every time it was used, it would drain the user's energy dry. Yellow Cattle, the black yak, and the Donkey King could use it to heavily injure or even kill experts with 6 severed shackles. If Chu Feng were to use it, it would definitely be more powerful. However, his energy would also be drained in an instant. In the end, the Manchurian tiger also returned dispiritedly. He really didn't want to stay in this space any longer. He felt that it was too dangerous. The Golden Condor King was badly injured and couldn't follow them. Chu Feng gave him a sparkling calabash seed and told him to leave with the White Crane and the others. Chu Feng found the black spear in the mountain ridge and set out with the black yak. Don't worry, I can put you into the spatial bottle if there's any danger. You'll be fine as long as I don't die, Chu Feng said to the Manchurian tiger. In truth, this fellow was an expert. After cultivating the Xingyi breathing technique, he could even fight 1 against 2 sea turtles with astonishing defensive power. However, it was difficult to change one's nature. He always wanted to slip away and wasn't willing to take risk. In his words, can bravery be used to make a living? Only a fool would risk his life for no reason. These words made everyone speechless and wanted to beat him up. Yellow Cattle, do you recognize this fruit? Chu Feng produced the stone fruit from the spatial bottle. Immediately, a strong fragrance assailed their nostrils. Everyone was astonished and turned back to look. The stone fruit was as big as a peach and had a similar shape. However, it was completely gray and made of stone. There were cracks on its surface, revealing the bright red flesh within. So strange? Let me taste it. The Manchurian tiger stretched out his claws but was slapped to the side by Chu Feng. Where did you pick it? Yellow Cattle revealed an astonished expression. Soon after, his little face tensed up and his expression became extremely solemn as he asked for the details. Chu Feng told him everything that had happened in detail. Oh no, we have to leave immediately after saving them. Yellow Cattle was somewhat nervous as he looked around. What's going on? Chu Feng was puzzled. The others were also suspicious. It was just a fruit, was there a need to be so serious? This is a demon refinement fruit. Yellow Cattle's beautiful little face was filled with worry. He would occasionally observe the surroundings and explain the origin of this fruit. Some powerful ancient evolved beings, such as the Taoist spiritual masters and the Buddhist golden arhats, would suppress and refine the beasts in their domains after subduing demons. Yellow Cattle suspected that this was a demon refinement ground with a great demon suppressed underground. And this fruit was the result of demon refinement. Some of the powerful evolved beings of the ancient beasts would find it difficult to kill them. Their blood energy would seep out and form the demon refinement fruit. How could it be like this? The Donkey King looked left and right in fear that a great demon would suddenly jump out of the ground. Yellow Cattle nodded. In the outer realms, most of the powerful orthodoxies have demon refinement grounds used to cultivate demon refinement fruits. Mount Longhu is the ancestral court of Taoism on Earth. Ancient heavenly masters often subdued demons, so it's normal for them to have demon refinement grounds, said Chu Feng. This was Mount Longhu. During a certain period of time, there would always be a heavenly master overseeing this place. Those were well-known figures among the ancient evolved beings. According to your description, this demon refinement fruit wasn't cultivated on purpose. Instead, it grew naturally after a crack appeared in the domain and the great demon's blood energy seeped out. According to Yellow Cattle, this was a type of warning sign. It would be fine if those great demons had died in the passage of time and had been completely refined. If they were still breathing and hadn't died completely, this area would be extremely terrifying once they escape. After being sealed in the demon refinement grounds for so long, even normal creatures would probably go insane after escaping. It was likely that they would cause a bloody calamity. It wasn't as if such things hadn't happened before in some great realms. Even some powerful orthodoxies had experienced old demons escaping from their demon refinement grounds and wreaking havoc in a region. Those who escaped were all lunatic. After being locked up for so many years, their minds were no longer normal. Add to that their hatred and desire for revenge, it was even more terrifying. Why is it getting more and more frightening? Should I consider leaving for the West and changing my name to the Siberian Tiger? The Tiger King mumbled. He felt that Mount Longhu was too dangerous and that a disaster was about to happen. His life would be in danger if he stayed in the East. Yellow Cattle said, "The ancient heavenly masters are powerhouses. It's impossible that they don't have a backup plan. I think that mysterious weapon we saw last time might be able to suppress demons." He mentioned the weapon that had blasted the flying saucer down. At that time, a dragon and a tiger had appeared and formed a golden mushroom cloud which had twisted the flying saucer into two. The scene was fairly astonishing. "But we still need to leave this place as soon as possible," added Yellow Cattle. "That weapon was suspected to be buried beneath Mount Longhu and not in this space. They had to escape from this place." Yellow Cattle reckoned that once the domains were broken, a great demon who hadn't breathed its last would be killed by that mysterious weapon. Everyone became serious and felt that they couldn't stay in this space for too long. "Oh right, what's the use of this fruit?" asked the Black Yak. "It's a precious medicine for healing injuries and replenishing life essence energy. This kind of peerless fruit can even regrow flesh and bones from the brink of death. The premise is that there's an extremely terrifying old demon in the demon refinement ground." This was obvious. The more powerful the demon in the demon refinement ground, the more astonishing the fruit would be. Chu Feng passed the stone fruit to Yellow Cattle so that he could recover his vitality. The little fellow had tried to act brave and sever his shackles on his own. Although his foundations weren't damaged, he was still gravely injured. Yellow Cattle didn't hold back, because there might be hidden dangers if he didn't recuperate as soon as possible. He absorbed the bright red flesh of the stone fruit as he hurried along. Its fragrance assailed his nostrils. This was something that grew from a stone tree formed from the essence of an ancient great demon. It could be considered a divine medicine for healing injuries to beings at their realm. It didn't take long for his depleted vitality to be replenished. So miraculous? The group was stunned. There was still more than half of the fruit left. Yellow Cattle hadn't finished using it yet. "All of you are injured. Give it a try," said Chu Feng. "Very well." The Manchurian tiger stretched out his claws. The Black Yak was also looking forward to it. He had lost a horn and had suffered a lot. Now, he really needed some treatment. Before long, the Manchurian tiger and the Donkey King let out odd cries. They felt their bodies itch as some of their wounds wriggled and healed rapidly. The strange energy the enemy had left in their bodies had been expelled. Their injuries were healed too quickly. The Donkey King's tail was slowly growing back and might even recover. The Black Yak mooed continuously. His wounded body was almost healed. Even the root of his broken horn was numb and filled with vitality. In the end, a small horn grew out. He knew that as long as he recuperated for a period of time, his horn would definitely recover to its original state. "This effect is too powerful." Chu Feng was astonished. Naturally. Otherwise, why would those powerful orthodoxies have a place to refine medicine? That's because the demon refinement fruit is too important to a sect. Won't this cause trouble? The experts of the great sects will subdue the demons and cultivate the demon refinement fruit. The beast race will definitely retaliate and kill them, said Chu Feng. There are restrictions. Only those who have committed the most heinous crimes can be suppressed, replied Yellow Cattle. but the group could feel that there was definitely a loophole in the rules. There were many battles in the outer realms. Even those resplendent holy lands were bound to be stained with blood. The demons of the outer realms are too miserable. The Black Yak grinned. He felt that those places were too dangerous. There are all kinds of creatures in the demon refinement ground, including the ferocious humans. Not all of them are demons. It all depends on who is suppressing them. According to ancient records, there were heavenly masters and even bodhisattvas among the evolved beings in a certain demonic saint's demon refinement ground, Yellow Ox said. The group was dumbfounded. They deeply felt the power and glory of the outer realms. Afterwards, they advanced once more and charged into the depths of this mysterious space. It wasn't as vast as they had imagined. After arriving, they heard the sounds of fighting. They saw many figures and surging sword chi. There were people fighting and the ground was stained with blood. The most astonishing thing was that the soil in this area had been split open to reveal a giant azure calabash, as tall as a mountain. This calabash seemed to have just broken out of the ground. Moreover, strands of blood energy seeped out from the mouth of the calabash. The most astonishing thing was that there were many stone trees growing near the mouth of the calabash. There were fruits of different sizes on each tree, and their fragrance wafted through the air. Yellow Cattle saw this and felt his scalp go numb. The domain of the demon refinement ground has been broken. The core item for refining medicine has been unearthed. Kill. There was a great explosion of golden light in the air. A winged sea beast rushed into the sky and fought fiercely with a blood-drenched golden-winged roc. Boom. On the other side, a silver-scaled sea beast resembling a crocodile was fighting the roaming Jade Temple Master. This area had been blasted apart. The battle was incomparably fierce. There were also some marine race experts surrounding the azure calabash, wanting to take it for themselves. Chapter 295. The mountainous terrain ahead was charred black, and some places had even melted and crystallized due to the high temperature. The battle was very intense. Experts were fighting in the air and in the depths of the stone forest. Those who could fight here were naturally top-notch experts. Boom! As soon as they got close, a wave of energy came crashing over, sending a boulder weighing tens of thousands of kilograms flying into the air beside Chu Feng's group. The terrain here was very open, and the trees were relatively sparse. It was a battlefield suitable for a showdown. Mount Kongtong's old mountain tortoise, the other white crane of the Mount Shu Sword Palace, the roaming Jade Temple Master. All of them were engaged in a bloody battle. Everyone was covered in blood. Buzz. Flames overflowed as a sea monkey carried azure flames with it. It attacked the experts on the continent, burning the few trees to ashes. Magma flowed on the ground, bright red and flourishing. This creature was very special. It was an ancient species with a powerful bloodline, and its population was extremely small. It roared, sending waves of lava hundreds of meters into the sky. It wanted to sweep the white crane down. Chi. The sword was like a rainbow. The palace master of the Mount Shu Sword Palace spat out a cloud of snow-white essence chi, which fused into the flying sword. It increased its power and flew downwards. The waves of lava were split apart, and the 2-meter-tall sea monkey staggered. It tumbled backwards, its bronze scales sending sparks flying in all directions. Its defensive power was astonishing, and only a small part of it was damaged, with blood seeping out of it. Bang! On the other side, high up in the sky, a sea beast was flying like lightning. It was too fast, carrying lightning with it. This winged sea beast was like a jackal, but its body was covered in glittering purple spikes. It collided with the golden-winged roc with too much force. In a flash, the golden feathers fell from the golden-winged roc. One had to know that the Rock King was one of the top 10 experts of the eastern continent, yet it had been injured. Its opponent was like a jackal, but its body was covered in spikes like a porcupine. Add to that the pair of terrifying wings that had once sliced off a mountain, it appeared even more strange and terrifying. There's actually more reinforcements. A few more have come to die. A sea beast roared. Its body was enormous, comparable to a small mountain. It looked like a large dog, its bloody mouth wide open, bringing with it a fishy smell as it roared over. It lowered its head and was about to swallow Chu Feng and the others in one gulp, bringing with it a terrifying sense of oppression. Its sharp, snow-white teeth were even taller than Chu Feng and the others. Chi! The snow-white long blade in Chu Feng's hand emitted a glaring light. It was as if a river of stars had exploded. It was extremely dazzling. The energy blade light rushed up and chopped towards that bloody mouth. The dog-like sea beast reacted very quickly. It moved to the side and almost rolled to the side to avoid the snow-white longsword. Even so, there was still blood flowing from its mouth. After being grazed by the blade, its lower lip was torn apart, revealing a very deep wound. The big dog's expression immediately turned ugly. It thought that it had encountered a soft persimmon and had come over to torture and kill it. Who would have thought that a blade light would be able to injure it? Troublesome, let's kill him together. It called out to the nearby three-headed sea beast. Currently, the marine race's greatest advantage was that they had far more experts than those on land. There were some marine race experts that hadn't participated in the battle yet and were currently studying the mountain-like azure calabash. Whoosh! How could Chu Feng wait for others to surround him? He decisively took action and did everything he could to eliminate this big dog as soon as possible. He had come to rescue people, so he naturally couldn't avoid killing. Since he was going to take action, he would fight to the end and seize the initiative. Snow-white blade light blossomed here, extremely resplendent. Chu Feng's movements were extremely fast as he continuously brandished his blade. Energy gushed out from the pores of his body, and his entire body was shining like a god of war descending to the mortal realm. Ah! The big dog cried out in alarm because in the blink of an eye, this human male had hacked out several hundred times. This was too terrifying, and it couldn't block it at all. In the blink of an eye, many bloody wounds appeared on its body, and some of them were so deep that bones could be seen. There was even a blade light that almost cut open its forehead. Oh! In the distance there were sea beasts roaring, causing the earth and mountains to shake. They had already rushed over with a terrifying aura to help the big dog. However, Chu Feng didn't give them the chance. The dazzling snow-white blade slashed out for the 500th time, cutting off one of the big dog's large claws. It fell to the ground with blood gushing out like a small stream. Ah! The big dog screamed. Pfft! The 501st slash fell, and there was no longer anything that could stop Chu Feng's shocking blade light. With a flash of light, blood splashed everywhere, and with a puff, the big dog's head was cut off. It had lost its life. Its mountain-like body collapsed with a loud rumble, smashing into the ground and causing dust to rise. Then, blood gushed out from its neck like a small river. Kill him! Not far away, some marine race members shouted angrily. 3 experts immediately rushed over. They hadn't expected that Chu Feng would be so brave and kill as soon as he arrived. Not only did they attack Chu Feng, but one of the sea beasts even stretched out its 10-meter-long claws to grab the Manchurian tiger's group. The Manchurian tiger was furious. He transformed into his true form and, with a loud roar, collided head-on with that sea beast. The black yak was holding his Buddhist staff and was ready to unleash a peerless attack at any moment. He had been holding back all this time because if he was going to kill, he would kill the strongest expert. He was currently searching for his target. The ones attacking Chu Feng were 2 sea fish. They treated the air as a vast ocean and were as fast as lightning. From time to time, they would streak across the sky and launch continuous attacks at Chu Feng. Clang, clang, clang. Chu Feng brandished his blade and met the 2 sea fish head-on. Their bodies were glowing and covered in purple-gold scales. Sparks flew as they clashed with the blade's edge. The most important thing was their movement technique. They were truly like swimming fish, gliding through the air like lightning. Each time, they would attack Chu Feng with their blade-like tails. This kind of movement technique is worth learning. Chu Feng discovered that the arcs drawn by the two fish were not only beautiful but also practical. They could evade the enemy and increase their attack power. The way they exerted their strength was quite special. The two sea fish were actually able to directly divert the force when Chu Feng hacked at them with his long blade. But that was as far as it went. Chu Feng erupted with all his might. His left palm lit up with resplendent lightning, and in the blink of an eye, densely packed lightning bolts flew out and struck the two sea fish. Although they were powerful, their bodies became sluggish. Their scales fell off and they were drenched in blood. At the same time, Chu Feng brandished his blade. This time, the two fish were no longer agile and were struck. Moreover, they were unable to divert the force and were immediately beheaded as they fell to the ground. This immediately caused a huge commotion. The marine race were all alarmed because 3 experts had died in such a short period of time. The incoming enemy had exceeded their expectations. Everyone, prepare to retreat. Chu Feng secretly communicated with the continental experts with his spiritual power, informing them that this was a demon refinement ground. There might be terrifying ancient evolvers within the azure calabash that were about to escape. It would be extremely dangerous to stay here. Several people replied in astonishment. They couldn't shake off their opponents for a while because the marine race was too difficult to deal with. Moreover, there were flying sea beasts that could catch up to them. At this moment, the marine race experts were at the mouth of the azure calabash and were thinking of ways to pluck the fruits from the stone tree. They hadn't taken action yet, or else the consequences would be even worse. Most importantly, these continental experts had been seriously injured by the great killing weapons. Their vitality was greatly damaged, and they were far from their peak state. Strand after strand of blood energy seeped out from the mouth of the azure calabash. The aura emitted made people feel uneasy, and even the marine race felt that something was wrong. However, there was still a group of experts lingering around the mouth of the calabash. They tried to forcefully approach the stone tree, but there was an invisible energy obstructing them. Kill these people first. Regardless of whether it was above or below the calabash, there were marine race experts who had noticed Chu Feng. They felt that he was a threat and moved in succession to surround and kill him. Chu Feng walked around the azure calabash and saw that there were people fighting in the distance on the other side. Old Black, let's get ready too. We'll rush up the azure calabash and snatch a few demon refinement fruits, said Chu Feng. He had the black yak and the others follow him as they prepared to launch their great killing weapons. The experts at the mouth of the calabash were all very powerful and well known. Roar! At the same time, the Manchurian tiger went berserk and decided victory and defeat with its opponent. It was now in its peak state and the enemy wasn't very strong. With a puff, it tore the sea beast into 2 halves. Let's go and charge up. Chu Feng took the lead and attacked the azure calabash. The demon refinement fruits were very important. If they could seize 2 or 3 of them, they could help the continental experts recover their vitality and change the current situation. However, it was somewhat difficult. The marine race experts had gathered there and had only managed to pluck 3 or 4 fruit. There was an invisible force at the mouth of the calabash. Rumble! Chu Feng crushed several marine race experts along the way as if he was crushing dry weeds and smashing them away. He forcefully rushed to the top of the calabash. Who dares behave atrociously? Someone shouted from the group at the mouth of the calabash. This was a brown-haired man about 180 centimeters tall. His skin was bronze in color and he looked strong and powerful. He looked down and sneered, "Courting death!" Boom! He raised his hand and directly pressed down. This was a very terrifying scene. His hand enlarged and slapped down in the blink of an eye, emitting terrifying energy light. It was as if a Buddha's hand was slapping down to suppress a demon. The other marine race experts were all in awe of him. From his gaze, they could tell that this person was a top character of the marine race. Thump! Chu Feng shouted loudly. The long blade in his hand shone resplendently and emitted incomparably dazzling splendor. The snow-white blade light rushed hundreds of meters into the air and met the golden hand head-on. Boom! There was a huge explosion here. The blade light collapsed and energy overflowed in all directions. Following which, there was a crack as the snow-white blade in Chu Feng's hand exploded. This was the weapon of the White Shark King, but it was directly smashed by the golden palm. Chu Feng was terrified. He knew he had encountered a powerful character. This was a peerless expert of the marine race, one of the strongest experts in this space. Thump! In a split second, he swung his fist and collided with the huge palm. A storm blew up between the two, followed by a burst of dazzling light. It was as if a meteor had struck the earth. The light illuminated the heaven and earth, and at the same time, emitted a destructive aura. Chu Feng felt his arm go numb and his fist was in severe pain. The power of the golden palm was too great. It was as if a Buddha was suppressing a demon, firm and tyrannical. Somewhat interesting, the brown-haired young man at the mouth of the calabash said. His bronze skin became even more lustrous. He looked down and said, "Come up and receive your death." At this time, the Manchurian tiger, the black yak, and the others were all scared. No one knew better than them how powerful Chu Feng was. But now, he had encountered a terrifying opponent. This person had smashed the snow-white blade with his bare hands. How hard was his palm? Chu Feng boarded the azure calabash. No matter what, he had to seize a few refined medicine fruit. Only by restoring some of the continental experts to their peak would they be able to break out of the encirclement. Suddenly, he was horrified. That was because, as he approached, he just happened to see the abnormal scene at the mouth of the calabash. There, blood energy was gushing out and becoming increasingly dense. Moreover, at this time, he saw a woman's head emerge from the mouth of the calabash. Although her complexion was pale, she possessed peerless beauty. In just a split second, Chu Feng's expression became absent-minded. On one hand, the other party possessed a devastatingly beautiful appearance, but on the other hand, it only made him slightly dazed. The most important thing was a formless energy fluctuation. It made his heart palpitate and shiver. His mind was almost stolen. Chapter 296. The Marine Race Group sensed something and turned back to gaze at the mouth of the calabash. However, it was empty within moments. The pale lady had disappeared and returned to the calabash. Only her blood energy was rising in spirals. Chu Feng's hair stood on end. He was sure that what happened just now wasn't an illusion. There was indeed a peerless beauty in front of him. Apart from the lack of blood, her countenance was flawless. He believed that this was a powerful character among the ancient evolved beings. Otherwise, how could she have survived in the demon refinement grounds until now? In truth, the Manchurian tiger and the others were also stunned. They only saw a blur before their eyes and felt their hairs stand on end. Of course, they were also stunned. Her beauty can topple cities. She's ranked first among all the women I've seen in the past hundreds of years, the black yak muttered. Although the Donkey King was quite shocked just now, he was still quite talkative. Who's ranked first? I met her at the base of Mount Kunlun when I was 15. She was graceful, gentle, and beautiful. Her curves were undulating and could be considered a peerless beauty. The black yak sank into his memories. You met an immortal? The Manchurian tiger was astonished. The black yak nodded solemnly. Yes, a navy blue female yak king. It's unforgettable to this day. The Manchurian tiger and the Donkey King rolled their eyes. Was there anything more ridiculous than this? But after some thought, They understood that the navy blue yak might be a female immortal in the black yak's eyes. "What nonsense are you spouting?" the marine race group shouted. They didn't want to listen to his nonsense because they had already sensed that something was wrong with this place. That was also why they wanted to pick the stone fruits as soon as possible. Otherwise, they would have long since joined the battle to kill the experts of the continent. "You guys don't understand. That's a saint beast, die." The black yak was speaking warmly as though he were reminiscing, but the next moment, he swung his Buddhist staff and smashed forward. This was naturally intentional. Just now, he had feigned madness as though he was immersed in the past. In reality, he was accumulating energy for a fatal blow. There were many marine race experts here, and it was a good time to use his killer weapon. Boom! Torrential energy surged and drowned the entire area. A golden arhat appeared and began chanting sutras as it charged forward. "You dare!" that brown-haired man shouted, and with a chong sound, he pulled out a 3-foot-long azure gold sword from his back. It was incomparably sharp, and he hacked forward. The sword light was like lightning, too resplendent. It illuminated the space around the mouth of the calabash, making the space around it unstable. The most terrifying thing was that the 3-foot green-gold sword was able to resist the Buddhist energy. Although it wasn't as good as the Buddhist staff, it wasn't much weaker. Boom! The entire area exploded. The bronze-colored skin of the brown-haired man glowed. He was strong and powerful. Borrowing the power of the green-gold sword, he quickly retreated and evaded the attack. Not everyone in this area was able to escape. Some people followed the brown-haired young man out of the danger zone, but others suffered heavy injuries. Puff! Blood splashed in all directions. The 2 people in the front were smashed by the explosive energy of the Buddhist staff and turned into meat paste. Some of them lost their arms, some had their legs broken, and some even had half of their bodies destroyed. The main thing was that the space in the mouth of the calabash was limited, making it difficult to dodge. Only 2? The great black yak was extremely dissatisfied and depressed. He had thought that he would be able to smash 5 or 6 people to death with this ambush. "Be content," the Donkey King said. He received the Buddhist staff and was eager to give it a try. Meanwhile, the great black yak was about to go limp and had to be supported by the Manchurian tiger. Swoosh! Chu Feng placed the old yak into the pristine jade bottle to recuperate in order to prevent any accidents from happening to him. "You guys really deserve to die." The marine race experts on the other side were furious. Even the brown-haired young man's expression was cold. He held the green-gold sword in his hand and pointed it toward them. He didn't utter a single word and was emitting a powerful killing intent. Chu Feng immediately knew who he was. It was a human from the seabed. The green-gold sword in his hand was a great killing weapon. He had once attacked the white snake and slashed her body in half. This race was called the marine race. They were extremely few in number and looked similar to humans. However, they breathed through their gills and weren't like the legendary mermaid. "Come at me if you're not afraid of death," the Donkey King challenged. He had already transformed into his human form and was holding the Buddhist staff in his hand. His arms were glowing as he poured energy into them. This marine person was called Luo Tian. He held the 3-foot green-gold sword in his hand and said to the people around him, "All of you retreat." He himself moved to attack. "Retreat your grandpa." The Donkey King decisively waved his Buddhist staff after seeing the situation. This great killing weapon had a wide attack range and wasn't afraid of Luo Tian charging over. Boom! As expected, a great explosion erupted at the mouth of the calabash. Energy surged and Luo Tian was forced back once more. 3 of the injured marine race experts who had escaped with broken bones and tendons were smashed to smithereens. At the same time, another person in the distance was injured. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, the marine race experts jumped down from the calabash in succession. This was simply too unjust. There was no way to fight. The other party was relying on a great killing weapon to suppress them. This made them feel extremely sullen. In truth, they had used this method to kill the continental experts not long ago. Luo Tian's eyes were cold as he retreated to a sufficient distance. If not for the mysterious green-gold sword in his hand, he would have retreated long ago. This isn't good. Yellow Cow spoke. He had been staring at the mouth of the calabash all this time and transmitted a message to Chu Feng and the others. This kind of battle might have loosened the seal. The ancient evolved being sealed within the calabash is about to come into being. According to what he said, the lady might not be able to come out even though she had successfully revealed her head just now. But if they were to fight here now, she would most likely attack the seal. Chu Feng discovered something odd. Just now, there was a suppressive force preventing him from approaching the stone tree beside the mouth of the calabash. But after the Black Yak and the Donkey King's Buddhist staff bombardment, the formless force had weakened and he was able to approach. With a swoosh, he put the Donkey King into the pristine jade bottle and rushed forward to pluck the stone fruit. In this short period of time, he rushed forward and picked 4 fruits in a row. "Stop him!" The marine race members cried out loudly. They had worked hard for a long time but had only managed to pick 6 fruit. In the end, Chu Feng's harvest was so great. The person who had jumped down from the calabash rushed up once again. Moreover, he was whistling and summoning other peerless experts with great killing weapons to surround Chu Feng's group. Swoosh, 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 Chu Feng utilized his spiritual arts and picked another 15 fruits. Some were as big as a fist, while others were as big as a human head. All of them were emitting a rich fragrance. This kind of harvest was too shocking. The marine race people's eyes turned red. They already knew the uses of these fruits, but in the end, Chu Feng had harvested nearly 20 of them in such a short time. How could their blood not boil, and they were incomparably jealous. At this time, Chu Feng was just about to continue picking when he sensed a dangerous aura. His spirit trembled as he rapidly retreated. A bronze lamp appeared faintly at the mouth of the calabash, emitting a weak flame as it danced about. Swoosh! Chu Feng retreated and left the mouth of the calabash. At the same time, he felt a formless force appear once again and could no longer approach the front. Go! Chu Feng jumped down from the calabash with the yellow cattle and the Manchurian tiger. The marine race Luo Tian had originally wanted to chase after them, but now, he revealed an astonished expression as he stared at the bronze lamp. Divine lamp! That was because he had once seen a few stone carvings in the ruins at the bottom of the sea. There were ancient evolvers holding this lamp, illuminating the heaven and earth as they fought unrivaled under the heavens. At that time, he had yearned for it, but who would have thought he would see an identical lamp here? The yellow cattle also turned back to stare at the lamp with a doubtful expression. He also felt that the lamp was extraordinary and was very similar to a weapon from a certain resplendent holy land. Many marine race people rushed to the mouth of the calabash, but there were also some who chased after Chu Feng's group in a bid to kill them. Come over if you want to die. At this time, the Manchurian tiger was standing beside Chu Feng with his Buddhist staff in hand. As for the Black Yak and the Donkey King, they were already eating the stone fruits within the pristine jade bottle. Moments later, they were full of vigor as they recovered and came out to stand beside Chu Feng. With the demon refinement fruits, they could continue brandishing their Buddhist staffs. In just a moment, they were emboldened and no longer afraid of the marine race's numbers. Golden Rock King, catch! Chu Feng took to the air and leapt over 1,000 meters into the air. He broke a fist-sized fruit in half and tossed it to the Mount Hua sect master for him to swallow. In truth, this Golden Bird King had long since understood the uses of this fruit. At this moment, he swallowed it without the slightest hesitation. Very soon, his body began to glow and erupt with terrifying energy. His injuries rapidly healed, and he was back to his peak state. "You're courting death." The sea beast fighting with the great rock king swooped down and wanted nothing more than to hack Chu Feng in half. It was surrounded by astral winds and overflowing with killing intent. It was shaped like a jackal, and its body was covered in spikes. At the same time, it had a pair of wings and was extremely powerful. Scram! Chu Feng shot out his flying knife and hacked at it. Clang! The sea beast was sent tumbling as it suffered from the tremendous impact. It was very powerful, but it was almost injured by Chu Feng's all-out attack. This made it even more sinister. "I'm about to recover. Your time of death has come." The Golden Rock King let out a long cry and charged toward the sea beast. Crane King, Kongtong Sect Master. Chu Feng followed the same pattern and charged over. He found the other white crane from the Sword Palace, as well as the old mountain tortoise and the roaming Jade Temple Master. He also gave them half a fruit each. "Where are the Mastiff King and the Wudong Grandmaster?" Chu Feng asked. The experts had recovered their strength, and the wounds on their hearts were rapidly healing. Their auras surged and they no longer evaded. They were ready to kill their enemies. "They're inside," the roaming Jade Temple Master informed. Chu Feng and the others didn't stop and charged toward the area behind the Azure Calabash. Rescuing people was more important. They had to find the old Grandmaster and the others as soon as possible. They couldn't stay in this area for long, because the ancient sealed experts could break the seal at any time. Boom! The marine human Luo Tian was attacking frantically at the mouth of the calabash. He wanted to pluck the bronze lamp. He knew it was dangerous, but he still wanted to try. "This madman will kill all of us," Yellow Cattle muttered. As expected, blood energy was gushing out from the azure calabash like an erupting volcano. It was becoming more and more intense. "Luo Tian, stop right now," someone from the marine race berated him. "You can't control me. Leave quickly if you're afraid of death." Luo Tian replied coldly. "You're crazy. This isn't a good place. Plucking some stone fruits is enough. Don't be greedy." A tiger's roar was transmitted from the distance. A fierce golden tiger with a pair of golden wings was standing on a mountain peak and roaring furiously. It was covered in scales and looked as though it was forged from gold. This was the sea god tiger, one of the top experts among the marine race experts. His status wasn't inferior to Luo Tian's. "Mastiff King." Chu Feng heard the tiger's roar and glanced over to find the Mastiff King. He was seriously injured and on the verge of death. His body was drenched in blood and his chest had been split open by the sea god tiger. Additionally, the Eight Visions Temple Master was also there. One of his arms had long since disappeared. Half of his body was drenched in blood. He was a peerless expert, but he had ended up in such a miserable state. He couldn't even keep his life. Both he and the Mastiff King had been ambushed before and had suffered grave injuries. Otherwise, they wouldn't have ended up like this. "Mastiff King, hold on. I'm coming!" Chu Feng shouted loudly. The air exploded. Although they were 5 kilometers apart, it only took the blink of an eye for him. Boom! Chu Feng crossed the sky and almost broke the mountain peak. "Scram!" The sea god tiger roared. His eyes were cold and emotionless as he said, "Where did this human insect come from? You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Cram! While speaking, he stretched out a forelimb covered in golden scales and slapped down fiercely in a bid to kill Chu Feng. This large claw was indestructible. The terrifying energy fluctuations caused the mountain peak he was standing on to split apart and was on the verge of exploding. Chapter 297. The Sea God Tiger. Chu Feng didn't dare to be careless against this marine beast, because he had heard too much about it along the way. It was one of the most powerful marine race experts. Its combat strength was said to be at the peak. Even a powerful entity like the White Shark King was only slightly valued by it and never viewed as an equal. Along the way, Chu Feng had heard too many rumors about it. For instance, a white crane from the Mount Shu Sword Palace was almost torn apart, a corner of the hollow jade temple master's heart was gouged out, and one of the 8 visions temple master's arms was torn off. Even the black yak's horn was chopped off by a random beam of energy from a distance. If not for the yellow cattle and the black yak's golden arhat talismans and Buddhist staffs, they would have surely been slaughtered. This golden sea god tiger was famous for his terrifying strength. Now, a single swipe of his claws caused the air to explode. That was because, in terms of speed alone, he was almost as fast as Chu Feng. One had to know that Chu Feng had grasped the divine feat. Thump! Chu Feng roared as he circulated the demon ox and demon flood dragon fists at full force. The two techniques merged into one, causing his strength to increase explosively as he fought against the sea god tiger head-on. Boom! The entire towering mountain was blasted apart. Chu Feng was below and the sea god tiger was on top. They fiercely clashed against each other. Fist seals and golden claws collided, causing an astonishing energy beam to erupt. At this time, Chu Feng wasn't holding back at all. But in the end, they were evenly matched. There was a great explosion here. One man and one tiger flew backwards, accompanied by resplendent energy light. The two great experts seemed to be enveloped by the heavenly sun, protecting themselves. At this time, the Manchurian tiger had arrived. He moved quickly and grabbed the Mastiff King, who was coughing up blood from the explosion, and fled with a swoosh. As for the Donkey King, he was kicking his hind legs and cursing as he carried the 8 Visions Temple Master away. He was coughing up blood from the impact of the explosion. The reason why it was so ferocious and dared to come and rescue them was because it had tasted the sweetness of success. It had fought its way into the depths of this space with Chu Feng and the others. They had gone through trials of life and death together, and in the end, it had been imparted the thunderous breathing technique. He felt that following Demon King Chu and risking his life would bring him many benefits. Now that he was asked to save someone, he naturally acted immediately without any hesitation. With its spineless personality, it would never have dared to take such a risk in the past. Although the thunderous breathing technique was indescribably wonderful, it was only an incomplete technique. Chu Feng and Yellow Cattle were not afraid of revealing it. In fact, Chu Feng and Yellow Cattle had already decided to join hands with the old Lama after this and go to the mysterious ancient temple at the foot of the great snow peak in the Himalayas to find the method. Yellow Cattle suspected that it might be the most important place of the Buddhist sects on earth. Perhaps there were clues to the thunderous breathing technique, or even the complete inheritance. That was because even though that place was covered in snow, the sound of thunder could still be heard from time to time. At this moment, both the Mastiff King and the Master of the 8 Visions Temple were like an arrow at the end of its flight. They were about to die because their injuries were too severe. Their internal organs had been torn into pieces. The Mastiff King and the Master of the 8 Visions Temple were covered in blood. After being brought out of the battlefield, Yellow Cattle broke open a fist-sized stone fruit and fed it to each of them. The effects were obvious. The duo's spirit was recovering rapidly, and even their wounds were wriggling as they healed. The sea god tiger had a great killing weapon on him, and Chu Feng also had a golden arhat talisman. However, he hadn't used it for the time being. Boom! They charged together for the second time. Chu Feng had surpassed 5 times the speed of sound. He was terrifyingly fast and practically tore through the sky. With a single leap, he had reached a height of 1,500 meters. Meanwhile, the sea god tiger was also diving down. With a flap of his golden wings, he reached 5 times the speed of sound. Although he was still a bit slower than Chu Feng, he was already 1 level faster than the other experts with 6 severed shackles. Thump! It was as though 2 suns had collided in the sky. The scene was terrifying as energy poured down in torrents and surged in all directions. Ordinary humans would be blinded by the light if they were here. Swoosh! Chu Feng rapidly landed on a mountain peak. The mountain peak under his feet had split into several pieces and was on the verge of collapse. The sea god tiger roared and swooped down. He spread his golden wings, which were even more terrifying than a heavenly blade. Accompanied by violent energy fluctuations, he arrived in an instant. Crack! Chu Feng leapt up and blasted out a fist. A flood dragon and a wild ox roared at the same time and appeared faintly discernible in front of his fist. Accompanied by lightning, the power of the fist was astonishing. As expected, the mountain was blasted apart once again. The two fought fiercely and clashed continuously. In just a short period of time, they had exchanged at least hundreds of blows. They were going all out without holding anything back. This was the most powerful opponent Chu Feng had encountered after his great increase in strength. This golden-scaled entity was courageous and unrivaled. It whistled through the mountain range and was unstoppable. Chu Feng leapt from one mountain peak to another. At times he would evade and at other times he would clash head-on. Crack! The sea god tiger swooped down. He spread his wings and directly cut off the mountain peak Chu Feng was on. This was the work of his wings. They were comparable to heavenly blades and were able to cut off a mountain peak with a single charge. Before long, the two experts had exchanged hundreds of blows. In the distance, the marine race experts were overwhelmed. How could this human be so powerful that even the sea god tiger couldn't take him down? How was this possible? White mist surged out from Chu Feng's mouth and nose. All the pores on his body relaxed as he circulated his special breathing technique to harmonize with the drifting energy between the heaven and earth. He was erupting with his greatest power. Roar! The sea god tiger's joints began to crackle. He possessed an ancient breathing technique, a peerless technique exclusive to the tiger race. His body automatically burst forth with tiger roars. Bang! 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 The two experts clashed continuously. At this time, even the golden-winged ping of Mount Hua and the mountain tortoise of Mount Kongtong were astonished. They had never imagined that Chu Feng would be so powerful. That was because they knew how terrifying the sea god tiger was. With a loud boom, the azure calabash in the distance began to sway and spray out blood energy. The scene was becoming increasingly terrifying. Luo Tian, are you courting death? The sea god tiger roared as he fought with Chu Feng. He was furious. That calabash was clearly a lethal weapon and contained a universe within it. How could it be touched so recklessly? However, the marine human Luo Tian had thrown caution to the wind. He wanted to obtain that bronze lamp and was bombarding it continuously. Chu Feng was anxious. There was a madman on the side of the marine race. If by any chance the ancient evolved demon were to escape, everyone here would die. He knew he couldn't delay any longer and had to leave as soon as possible. Chu Feng, the old grandmaster, is over there. At this time, the Manchurian tiger called out. He had discovered the old grandmaster from Mount Wudong. Scram! Chu Feng roared as he erupted with his most powerful fist. He forced the sea god tiger back and charged 5 kilometers away. He had also sensed the energy fluctuations there. The sea god tiger gave chase. Chu Feng turned back coldly. He was prepared to use the golden Arhat talisman, but the sea god tiger was very vigilant. He also had a terrifying weapon on him. The sea god tiger slowed down his steps and maintained a certain distance. The air trembled as Chu Feng moved 5 kilometers away in just 3 leaps. He discovered the old grandmaster was indeed still alive, but his condition was far from good. There was a bone-deep blade wound on the old grandmaster's back and a number of bloody holes on his chest. They seemed to have been caused by spears. His arms were bent unnaturally and had long since been fractured after suffering a heavy blow. As for his abdomen, legs, and even his head, they were all bleeding profusely. His injuries were so severe that it was a miracle that he was still alive. That was because he was surrounded by a group of marine race experts after encountering the great killing weapon. His situation was simply terrible. Presently, he was fighting an extremely powerful character. It was the marine race's octopus king. This expert wasn't weaker than the sea god tiger and was also one of the leading characters of the marine race. Chu Feng was deeply astonished. The old Grandmaster's arms had been fractured, but he was actually able to hold on against a stronger opponent. He hadn't died immediately. The old man was executing the Taiji fist. It looked weak and powerless, but he was constantly dispelling the deadly situation and maintaining his vitality. For the time being, the opponent couldn't kill him. However, he was in a miserable state. There were several bloody holes on his body, apparently caused by the octopus's tentacles. At this time, the Octopus King was in human form. However, he had 8 arms and was over 3 meters tall. When his 8 arms attacked, the entire mountain trembled and the energy within them was boundless and astonishing. Kill! Chu Feng arrived. He roared loudly and charged straight at the Octopus King like a heavenly steed. At this moment, a large golden bell appeared around his body. He felt that the Xingyi fist was the most effective method against this 8-armed monster. He formed a golden bell barrier. As expected, the burly man's 8 arms moved at the same time as he approached. The strikes caused the bell to ring and ring loudly. "Senior, don't worry. I'm here." Chu Feng's fist seals erupted and blasted the Octopus King away. He stood in the way and separated the old Grandmaster. "Where do you think you're going?" The sea god tiger roared as he chased after Chu Feng. "Both of you deserve to die." Chu Feng blasted the Octopus King away and met the sea god tiger head-on. His flying knife also shot out as he swung out his fist. At the same time, the Manchurian tiger arrived. He retreated with the old Grandmaster and fed him the demon refinement fruit. The old Grandmaster's vitality was weak and his eyes were dim. However, after seeing Chu Feng's ferocity and mastery of the Xingyi fist to such a level, his eyes lit up with admiration. In the air, Chu Feng was alternating between the Xingyi fist and the demon flood dragon and demon ox fist. He was absorbing the energy of the heaven and earth, and his body was becoming increasingly resplendent. He fought fiercely with the 2 experts and clashed from time to time. The marine race was astonished. Even the continental experts were astonished and felt that his potential was astonishing. Boom! Go to hell! Finally, the Black Yak made his move. He was worried that Chu Feng would be in danger because the 2 experts weren't any weaker than Chu Feng. They were simply too powerful. He blasted out with his Buddhist staff. Unfortunately, both the sea god tiger and the Octopus King were on guard. They immediately evaded and rushed far away. "Not good, run!" It was at this time that Yellow Cattle cried out with an incomparably anxious expression. In the distance, that azure calabash that was as tall as a mountain was shaking as though it had exploded. Terrifying thunderous sounds were emitting from within. At the same time, the mouth of the calabash erupted like a volcano. Blood energy rushed into the sky. "Run, a powerful ancient evolved being is about to come into being," Yellow Cattle warned. That was because the seal was about to be broken. At this point, there was no way to stop it. There was clearly a living being within the azure calabash that hadn't been refined to death. Who knew what kind of earth-shattering things she would do once she came into being? Chapter 298. The earth quaked and the mountains swayed. The azure calabash that was thousands of meters tall was swaying left and right, spewing out magma-like blood energy that pierced through the clouds. The commotion was simply too great. Moreover, large cracks appeared on the ground and extended for hundreds of kilometers. This scene was somewhat terrifying, as though the end of the world had arrived. "Luo Tian, you want us to die with you?" At this time, not to mention Chu Feng's group, Even the marine race was dissatisfied. Some experts wanted to fall out with the marine race king Luotian. That was because everything was caused by him. He waved the azure sword in his hand as though he had gone mad. He wanted to approach the calabash's mouth, break through the formless energy, and pluck the lamp away. Everyone felt that things weren't looking good. It was likely a great calamity was about to befall them. Go! Chu Feng shouted at Yellow Cattle and the others, telling them to leave with the old Grandmaster. He would bring up the rear and fight the Sea God Tiger and the Octopus King. I'll go with you, the Black Yak shouted. He tore open a stone fruit and dug out a piece of fragrant red meat. After eating it, he was once again full of vigor. He held the Buddhist staff in his hand and was prepared to fight to the death with the marine race. No need, all of you leave. Chu Feng refused. Any later and the group wouldn't be able to leave. He possessed extreme speed and wasn't afraid at all. At the same time, he also had a great killing weapon on him. It was the last golden Arhat talisman. If used at the critical moment, it would be enough to resist the marine race's great killing weapon. You want to leave? Stop dreaming. Leave your lives behind. I won't leave until I kill you all. The Sea God Tiger roared with incomparable ferocity. He was obstructed by Chu Feng just as he was about to kill the Mastiff King and the Eight Visions Temple Master. Following which, he fought with Chu Feng but actually failed to kill the other party. On the contrary, Chu Feng managed to save the Wudong Grandmaster. As the Sea God Tiger saw it, this was a type of provocation. A young human had saved people from right under their noses and fought with them. Now, he was delusional enough to escape? All of you must die. The Sea God Tiger roared loudly. His entire body was golden and covered in dense scales. The lines of his body were smooth and possessed an incomparable sense of power. His wings beat the sky as if they were about to tear the firmament apart. Covered in golden flames, it dove down from thousands of meters in the sky like a meteor crashing into the ground and charged at Chu Feng. At this moment, Chu Feng was fighting against the Octopus King. The blood energy around his body was boiling, and he was using all of his strength. Facing such a powerful enemy, he couldn't afford to hold anything back. The Sea God Tiger arrived at 5 times the speed of sound as he dived down from the sky. He made use of inertia and his incomparable explosive power to bombard Chu Feng's body. In the distance, both the marine race and the continental entities were overwhelmed with shock. The Sea God Tiger's giant claw had almost distorted the void. Golden light erupted from it and the energy was like a mountain torrent bursting through a dam. Boom! It smashed down just like that. The golden tiger claw hadn't even come into contact with Chu Feng yet, but the energy pouring down had already scattered the mountain ridges below. Buzz! Dong! The mountain ridges below were swept up by the energy and directly torn apart. Following which 2 mountain peaks were split into pieces and disintegrated with a loud bang. The scene was astonishing. One could easily imagine how violent the Sea God Tiger's attack was. He wanted to kill Chu Feng. Clang! Sure enough, when the tiger claw reached down, even Chu Feng's shingy golden bell canopy couldn't block it. One had to know that 7 true forms had appeared and were branded on the walls of the bell. It was much more powerful than when he was fighting against Qian Yu and the Golden Crow. But now, the walls of the bell were torn apart with a loud crack. The tiger claw reached in and pierced through the shingy golden bell canopy. Cold light flickered amidst dazzling golden radiance. The Sea God Tiger's ferocious attack was unstoppable. The shingy true forms were scattered as the claw clawed at Chu Feng's spine. Chu Feng was deeply surprised. The destruction of the golden bell canopy put him in a passive position. He was originally locked in a fierce battle with the Octopus King, but his protective barrier had actually been pierced. Not only was he attacked from the back, but the Octopus King was also excited and went berserk. Its 8 arms danced about as it smashed forward. Thump, 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 Chu Feng's hands moved in unison. Terrifying palm imprints clashed against the 8 arms like a series of mirages. An astonishing energy tempest burst forth and engulfed the dilapidated mountainous region below. At the same time, he shot out a glistening scarlet flying knife. He poured a terrifying amount of energy into it and used his spiritual energy to slash behind him to block the sea god tiger's sharp claws. Clang, 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 the flying knife weaved about and hacked continuously. Finally, it transformed into a scarlet shield which blocked behind him while he himself shifted to the side. That tiger claw was simply too astonishing. It was completely unafraid of the flying knife and, in the end, actually shook off the blade and slapped down. Even though Chu Feng had shifted to the side and didn't manage to grab his spine, a terrifying groove was left on the side of his body. It was so deep that bones could be seen and sparkling red blood immediately splattered out. Chu Feng. Yellow Cattle, the Manchurian tiger, and the others on the ground cried out in alarm. Chu Feng had actually suffered serious injuries. This sea god tiger was indeed powerful and too ferocious. If it was an ordinary king-level entity with 6 severed shackles, their spine would have been broken and they would have died on the spot. The Manchurian tiger's hair stood on end. As a fellow tiger, he understood just how terrifying this golden-scaled tiger king was. Roar! The sea god tiger roared as golden light erupted from his body. He flapped his wings and hovered in midair, attacking frantically at Chu Feng. He wanted nothing more than to tear him apart. Human, I've already said you can't leave. Leave your life behind. The sea god tiger said coldly. The wound on Chu Feng's back was healing at a visible rate. He had already crossed the air and evaded the sea god tiger's next attack. Additionally, he changed his main target. The Xingyi golden bell appeared once again to block the octopus king. He then leapt up and pounced towards the sea god tiger. Chu Feng formed a dragon seal with his left hand and a tiger seal with his right. He immediately used the ultimate move of the Xingyi fist. Dragon and tiger contend for hegemony. Against such a sea god tiger, any fist technique had to be a powerful killing move. Otherwise, ordinary fist seals would be ineffective. Roar! The roar of a dragon and tiger reverberated through the air. This wasn't an ordinary fist seal but an ancient killing technique. It surged violently as a terrifying spiral energy emerged, threatening to tear apart everything in its path. Thump, thump, thump in midair, Chu Feng and the sea god tiger were entangled together. His fist seals were majestic as they smashed forward continuously. Every strike was akin to a divine mountain pressing down. Moreover, these fist seals would automatically form a spiral energy whenever they came into contact with the sea god tiger. The destructive force was simply too terrifying. One could see a faint golden spiral hurricane forming around the area, tearing apart all the mountain peaks they passed by. Blood splashed out from the sea god tiger's large claws as well as lacerations. Boom! The next moment, Chu Feng's fist seals changed once again. The demon flood dragon fist with his left hand and the demon ox fist with his right. This was his most powerful attack at the moment, but the golden bell canopy had disappeared. He focused on attacking the sea god tiger and traversed the mountain ridge at 5 times the speed of sound. He evaded the octopus king and forced the sea god tiger into a decisive battle. The demon flood dragon fist was somewhat similar to the Xingyi fists in that they both contained a terrifying spiral energy. The slightest contact would tear the target apart from the outside. It was exceptionally tyrannical. Chu Feng streaked through the air. The sea god tiger's fist seal struck the mountain ridge as the sea god tiger evaded. It immediately tore a huge hole in the area, sending rocks and earth spiraling like a hurricane. The scene was somewhat terrifying. The demon ox fist was quite special. It could penetrate the target's interior and form a vibration. It was as though its energy could increase rapidly and explode from within. Chu Feng had gone crazy. He used 5 times the speed of sound to force the sea god tiger to fight him head-on. The sea god tiger was furious. One of his large claws was once again torn open by the demon flood dragon fist and was drenched in fresh blood. At the same time, the demon ox fist arrived. The fist intent was majestic and several of the fists collided with the sea god tiger. Terrifying vibrations stacked up within the sea god tiger's flesh and blood, threatening to collapse his body. The sea god tiger let out an odd cry as a piece of flesh on his clawed arm exploded from within. A string of blood blossomed out, inflicting considerable injuries on the sea god tiger as fresh blood gushed out. "Didn't you want to kill me? Come at me!" Chu Feng raised his hands and legs. Beams of energy blossomed as his fist intent became increasingly terrifying. Of course, this consumed a great deal of energy. He exerted all his strength and utilized his most powerful fist seals. He exerted 120% of his strength to fight against his opponent. Every time, a large amount of energy would be drained from his body. Normally, he wouldn't do this because he had encountered the powerful sea god tiger. The only fortunate thing was that he could circulate his breathing technique and merge it with the drifting energy between the heaven and earth. This allowed him to replenish his physical needs in the shortest time possible. Of course, it was still a bit risky. There were always signs that he couldn't make ends meet. "If you can't kill me, I'll send you to your grave," Chu Feng shouted. He raised his fists and smashed them forward. In truth, the combination of the demon flood dragon fist and demon ox fist had become increasingly terrifying. The spiral energy and vibrational energy would explode from time to time. In the distance, both the marine race and land life forms were moved. Chu Feng's tyrannical fist intent had suppressed and even suppressed the sea god tiger. This was simply too astonishing. "Good kill. Destroy this tiger cub," the black yak and the others shouted in the distance. They were retreating to leave this area. "Ao!" the sea god tiger roared. He borrowed the momentum of his clash with Chu Feng to rush toward a certain direction. He wanted to kill the yellow cattle, the old grandmaster, and the others. He was still paying attention to these people even at this stage. He didn't want them to escape and wanted to kill them all. The sea god tiger was very proud. He believed that the Mastiff King, the 8 Visions Temple Master, and the old Grandmaster were all saved by Chu Feng from the Octopus King. He wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. "Get lost!" the black yak shouted as he waved the Buddhist staff with all his might. He was purposely provoking the sea god tiger. He should have retreated far away long ago, but he was unwilling to give the sea god tiger a taste of his own medicine. The ground crumbled and the mountain peaks cracked. The might of this Buddhist staff was simply too ferocious. A gigantic golden arhat appeared in the air, illuminated by Buddhist radiance as he chanted scriptures and attacked the sea god tiger. Roar! The sea god tiger's roar shook the heaven and earth as he opened his mouth. Even the mountains trembled, and many kings couldn't withstand it. Their eardrums were almost destroyed by the sound. A weapon flew out from the sea god tiger's wings. It was activated by the sea god tiger and enlarged. It was a golden dagger which blocked the Buddhist scriptures and boundless energy. However, the Buddhist staff was extremely ferocious. It forced the sea god tiger back and sent the golden dagger flying. The dagger was a great killing weapon capable of destroying a peerless king-level expert. However, it was restrained by the Buddhist staff. The sea god tiger's eyes were cold, but there was nothing he could do. "Go!" Chu Feng shouted from midair. He told the black yak and the others not to delay and to leave as soon as possible. That was because the azure calabash was becoming more and more dangerous. It seemed like it was about to explode. At this time, not only were the creatures on the continent retreating, but even the marine race couldn't care less about their encirclement. Many people were fleeing madly. Of course, that madman Luo Tian hadn't left yet. He was attacking the calabash in a frenzy and had offended all the marine race beings. They wanted nothing more than to eat him alive. "Sea God Tiger, get over here!" Chu Feng shouted. He had already arrived and wanted to drag the Sea God Tiger and the Octopus King into a decisive battle. Neither of them was as fast as him. If the azure calabash were to explode, he would be able to escape faster than them. The Sea God Tiger was furious. He was very crazy and had a strong killing nature. The primordial ferocious tiger specialized in killing. This was a factor hidden in his bloodline. However, this human was even crazier than him. He had taken the initiative to attack. "You're courting death," the Sea God Tiger roared furiously. The densely packed golden scales on his body opened up and shot out tens of thousands of light beams. He pounced over with a boom and was ready to fight to the death with Chu Feng. The Octopus King originally had the intention to retreat, but now, his eyes flickered with ominous glints. He felt that this was a good opportunity to kill Chu Feng. With the Sea God Tiger at the front, he could find an opportunity to kill Chu Feng. That was because he felt that this human was too great of a threat. It was better to eliminate him as soon as possible. "Who do you think you are to provoke the two of us? We'll destroy you today," the Octopus King said coldly. He then transmitted a message to the Sea God Tiger: "Kill him, don't let him go." Chapter 299. Impudent! You can't overturn the heavens! The 3-meter-tall Octopus King moved his 8 arms and charged toward Chu Feng. His 8 palms were glowing as he attacked with all his might. Thump! Mountain rocks were blasted apart and the ground was split apart. His strength was extremely great. His 8 arms were glowing and surging with energy akin to thunder. Chu Feng circulated the golden bell canopy to resist the attack while the bell outside his body rumbled. He watched as the black yak and the others disappeared over the horizon. He no longer had any worries because he possessed the divine feat. It would be easy for him to leave if he wanted to. Roar! The Sea God Tiger's fine golden scales opened and closed, emitting beams of light that shot into the sky. He had entered an ineffable state and, after accumulating power for a moment, dived down from the sky. "Human, die!" The Sea God Tiger's words were concise. He only had one goal in staying behind, and that was to kill Chu Feng and not let him leave this space alive. Otherwise, he would have left long ago. The azure calabash was becoming increasingly dangerous, and he knew he couldn't stay here for long. At this time, the Sea God Tiger was different from before. His scales were actually emitting clanging sounds and the bones in his body were rumbling like thunder. The tiger's bones trembled and his scales clanged as his energy surged. The clouds came from the dragon and the wind from the tiger. At this moment, a golden hurricane appeared around his body and swept toward the mountain ridge. Boom! A mountain peak was swept up and exploded in mid-air. Chu Feng was astonished. He hadn't even displayed his might yet, but the Sea God Tiger had already gone crazy. He was going to use his strongest power to fight with his life on the line. One could see a blurry image of a tiger behind the Sea God Tiger. It was moving along with him and emitting a bitter baleful aura which surged into the sky. What was going on? Chu Feng was increasingly astonished. "My race has the palm of slaughter. Hand over your life," the Sea God Tiger roared with peerless ferocity. The palm of slaughter of the primordial ferocious tiger was on par with the vermilion bird and the true dragon. This was a legend many people knew about, but no one took it seriously. But now, the Sea God Tiger was truly using this power. A pair of giant claws pounced down and pierced through the golden bell outside Chu Feng's body. It was peerlessly tyrannical and filled with torrential killing intent. "You can be proud of yourself. You actually forced me to use the life-killing technique. However, you will also die without a burial." The pair of tiger claws stirred the void, and in an instant, a hurricane accompanied by energy drowned the place where Chu Feng was. Most importantly, a phantom leapt up from behind the sea god tiger's back. It was precisely that terrifying baleful aura from before. It had taken the form of a tiger and pounced into the hurricane to kill Chu Feng. Scram! Chu Feng shouted. He sensed danger. The demon flood dragon fist in his left hand and the demon ox fist in his right intertwined, and black light shone brightly. Within his fist, two true forms also flew out. One was a black flood dragon, the other was a black archaic barbaric ox. Moreover, the two of them merged together, attacking within the hurricane, resisting the tiger fiend. Bang bang bang, the hurricane was torn apart and scattered. In addition, the black flood dragon and immemorial barbaric ox were merging, tangling together, about to turn into a vicious beast. Not only did the fist imprint merge, the true fist intent true form also began to merge. This was the true essence of merging two fist arts into one. Following which, Chu Feng's fists merged the demon flood dragon fist and the demon ox fist together, causing his strength to increase explosively. Crack! Within a short period of time, his fist imprint glowed with black light. As it smashed forward, even the sea god tiger was astonished. However, he had also displayed the second move of his great killing technique. His body tilted slightly and slashed down with his terrifying wings. At this time, the energy in his body was boiling and spreading towards his wings. He concentrated all of his strength to strengthen the pair of golden wings. At this moment, the sea god tiger's wings were resplendent like the sun. They were even more dazzling than a heavenly blade as they slashed over. Chu Feng felt an intense pain in his fist. It felt as though it was about to be cut apart. However, after merging the fist intent and true forms into one, his current fist art had advanced to a new level. His energy had increased explosively, and he suppressed the killing blow of the wings and blasted them away. If it were before, he might have been in danger. The sea god tiger's wings were very odd. They were able to mobilize and concentrate all of his energy to become indestructible. They could easily cleave apart mountains and kill kings with 6 severed shackles. This was a type of ultimate killing technique. Clang, clang, clang like a metallic collision, the sea god tiger's wings were smashed by Chu Feng until they dimmed down. The sea god tiger roared and flew back. How hateful! The sea god tiger was furious. He was certain that his strength had increased by a large margin and that he should be able to kill his opponent. However, he hadn't expected Chu Feng's fist art to also increase in power. Only in battle can one comprehend the true meaning of fist arts. Chu Feng was enlightened. Previously, he felt that he had already merged the demon flood dragon fist and demon ox fist into one. Only during this life and death battle did he realize that it was only a fusion in form. Only now did he take a step forward and comprehend the fist intent. Only when the true forms had returned to one would it be considered a sublimation and a successful fusion. Kill! As the sea god tiger flew out diagonally, that tiger tail lashed out. The entire golden tail was covered in dense scales, and it was powerful and powerful. The air exploded as it swung back and forth, producing a deafening sound akin to a thunderclap. Most importantly, there were mysterious and unfathomable runes on the tail. They seemed like tadpole characters, but they also seemed like a primordial divine language. This caused the entire tail to emit a baleful aura. Chu Feng was sure that this sea god tiger had grasped a mysterious inheritance. This was definitely an extraordinary ultimate killing technique. Fortunately, he had comprehended the fist intent and was able to resist it calmly. His hands formed fist seals and his one and only true form appeared. It was as berserk as a raging bull and could also soar into the 9 heavens like a flood dragon. Just like his current fist art, It lacked some craftsmanship and gained a type of true meaning of freedom. It was even more powerful now. Bang! 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 Chu Feng's fist smashed down on the sea god tiger's tail. The spiraling force and vibrational force worked together to tear the tail apart from the outside and explode from the inside. This caused the sea god tiger great pain. That talismanic rune-covered tail actually seeped out traces of blood. Some of the golden scales had fallen off and were drenched in blood. This caused the sea god tiger to feel great pain. He rushed into the sky with a loud roar and flapped his wings, producing strong winds. The sea god tiger was enraged. His killing technique had actually been broken by someone so calmly. Again, Chu Feng shouted at him. He felt that his current state was very good and that it was very suitable for him to further comprehend the fist arts he had grasped. Swoosh! He suddenly shifted his body to the side and evaded dozens of arrows. Not far away, the Octopus King was actually drawing his bow. He had too many arms and his movements were extremely fast. Arrows capable of killing king-level entities flew over one after another. I can also use you to practice my fist arts. Chu Feng rushed over and the golden bell canopy appeared once again. However, this time, he boldly tried to fuse the demon flood dragon fist true form into the Xingyi 12 true forms. Following which, he fused the demon ox fist into it and began to evolve it. Clang! At this moment, the golden bell canopy outside his body was somewhat different. It was still mainly golden in color, but there were some black patterns on it. They were faintly discernible black flood dragons and jet-black raging bulls. Following which, the golden and black lights burst forth and turned into a purplish-gold color where they connected. The large bell seemed to have become more solid and condensed. It actually possessed a spiritual attack effect when swung. Kill! Chu Feng pounced toward the Octopus King. With his speed exceeding 5 times the speed of sound, he could naturally catch up to this sea beast and clash fiercely. As expected, the mutated bell was more solid and the sound it produced could penetrate one's physical body and attack one's spirit. Is this the spiritual attack brought about by the demon ox roar and the demon flood dragon roar? Chu Feng was astonished. He naturally knew the wondrous effects of the two-fist art. However, he didn't expect that this kind of attack could also be added to the Xingyi golden bell canopy. The Octopus King was very agitated. The sound that penetrated his mind was making him dizzy, and his blood and qi were churning. It was extremely uncomfortable. If it were any other king-level entity, they might have already died of a grudge. He was very strong. This kind of sound wave couldn't kill him, but it could cause him some trouble. The next moment, Chu Feng evolved once again. He displayed a number of Xingyi true forms, but he didn't change them. His movements and true forms were standard, containing all kinds of transformations as they condensed onto the golden bell canopy. However, he switched his breathing technique to the one Yellow Ox had taught him. It could be said that he was very relaxed at the moment. After truly merging the demon flood dragon fists and demon ox fists, there was a kind of true meaning of freedom. Even his mental state was somewhat different. It was as if he was in a state of Tao comprehension and dared to try all kinds of things. Can I really activate it? Chu Feng revealed an odd expression. He didn't dare to try it before because he was worried that he would be tormented to death if he made a mistake. Now, he found that there was no big problem. Clang! The large bell rumbled, bringing with it a hazy mist like the primal chaos. He felt an indescribable change after activating it with the supreme breathing technique taught by Yellow Cattle. This bell was indestructible and imprinted with several true forms that were even more vivid and lifelike. The mist lingered about like the primal chaos bell shaking. The Octopus King couldn't help but cry out as blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. He had actually been injured by the bell. Good. Chu Feng was delighted as he charged forward with a fierce attack. In the sky, the sea god tiger revealed an astonished expression. Gazing from afar, Chu Feng was like a primal chaos bell pressing down on the Octopus King. The Octopus King had no way to retaliate even with all 8 of his arms. The Octopus King's arms smashed onto the bell of primal chaos. Instead, the space between his thumb and forefinger was injured and dripping with blood. Chu Feng was overjoyed because his attempt this time was extremely successful, but his smile froze very soon. The bell of primal chaos was no longer stable, and cracks had begun to appear from within. Moreover, it was actually about to explode. Little octopus meatball, accept your death, Chu Feng shouted to provoke the Octopus King. He charged forward with all his might and rammed the bell of primal chaos toward the Octopus King. Apparently, the Octopus King was in a state of violent rage. He would never feel good after being suppressed, especially when they were evenly matched just a while ago. But in the blink of an eye, the other party's fist intent had changed and caused him to suffer a great loss. Boom! He didn't believe in heresy and went all out this time. His 8 arms trembled and his 8 fists smashed toward the bell. He simply couldn't break it. This bell was condensed from energy and emitted frighteningly powerful fluctuations. At this moment, Chu Feng's figure crouched down and forcefully broke free from this energy bell. He directly gave up and cut off his connection with this energy. Boom! A great explosion took place in this place. The bell of primal chaos exploded and the Octopus King screamed miserably. His body was in tatters with 6 of his 8 arms broken and half of his body pierced through. It all happened too suddenly. From the beginning of the battle, Chu Feng had used the golden bell barrier to protect his body. Now, he had actually broken free. This was simply destroying his own Great Wall. In truth, Chu Feng didn't feel good either. He felt a sense of emptiness in his body. He had squandered a large amount of his physical energy in one go, causing his body to sway. But relatively speaking, the enemy was in an even more miserable state. He was almost torn apart on the spot. The bell of primal chaos was very powerful, but it was unstable and needed to be improved. Chu Feng had no choice but to give up midway and kill the enemy in passing. However, he saw the potential of the bell of primal chaos. He could continue developing it by adding the Shingi Fist, the Demon Ox Fist, and the Demon Flood Dragon Fist. Then, he could activate it with the Supreme Breathing Technique to manifest the bell of primal chaos. "Ah, go to hell!" the Octopus King howled. He waved a silver conch in his hand, which emitted terrifying ripples and whining sounds. It was as if he was going to grind away at the enemy's spirit. This was a great killing weapon he had brought from the bottom of the sea. Previously, it had caused great trouble to the experts on the continent. Chu Feng shot out the golden Arhat talisman without the slightest hesitation. It began to glow and gather the drifting energy between the heaven and earth. A tempest arose and then it exploded with a loud bang. Boom! The entire area was submerged in energy and began to boil. The sea god tiger was in midair. He was about to dive down at first, but he immediately soared up after seeing the situation. He didn't dare to go down. When the area calmed down, the Octopus King's expression was unsightly. The conch in his hand had been torn to pieces and destroyed. Of course, Chu Feng's golden Arhat talisman had also been burnt to ashes and completely disappeared. How hateful! The Octopus King's heart was dripping blood. A priceless weapon had been lost just like that. He was extremely upset. Chu Feng couldn't help but sigh. The golden Arhat lineage of the ancient evolved beings was indeed terrifying. Even the crude products they left behind were so powerful. It was just a piece of paper, yet it was enough to destroy a top-grade king-level entity. Swoosh! Chu Feng pounced forward. His movements were sharp and his reactions were swift. The current Octopus King was in a miserable state. He had been gravely injured by the large bell and was left with only 2 arms. Half of his body was already in tatters. Roar! The sea god tiger swooped down from the sky in a bid to stop the enemy. The octopus king was also frantically resisting. He knew his condition was terrible and that he might be killed. He needed to hold on for a while. However, Chu Feng was simply too fast. He had surpassed 5 times the speed of sound and arrived directly. He grabbed the wounded octopus king and tore him apart. With a puff, the octopus king was split into 2 halves and was flung away by Chu Feng. The 2 halves landed in the distance and turned into 2 giant halves with all kinds of juices gushing out. The octopus king, one of the marine race leaders who had attacked Mount Longhu, had been killed by Chu Feng. Chapter 300. A top-grade king had been massacred. His mountainous corpse lay on the ground, and the octopus king was dead. In the sky, the sea god tiger's eyes were sharp. He roared as golden ripples spread out from his mouth. Loud bangs rang out as they came into contact with the mountain peaks below. Some of the cliffs cracked and even exploded. This was the tiger roar soundwave art. He was somewhat furious. 2 experts were targeting Chu Feng, but one of them had been killed by him. If news of this got out, it would only serve as a foil to show how powerful this human was. To the sea god tiger, this was a stain on his record. It was an extremely dishonorable battle record that he could hardly accept. Clang, clang, clang. The sea god tiger's body was engulfed in raging flames, following which a piece of scale fell off and floated in the air. It emitted a golden radiance and then shot down. Chu Feng didn't pay much attention at first. Wasn't it just a scale? He could just shatter it. But his expression soon changed. There were traces of blood on this scale which formed strange patterns. Those were some kind of mysterious runes. Boom! After the scale shot down, a huge explosion occurred when Chu Feng brandished his fist. Logical words. Chu Feng was astonished. The blood-colored patterns on the scale were words containing natural energy. They could draw upon the energy of the heaven and earth and explode in this place. His fist was somewhat sore and there were even traces of blood on it. One could see just how terrifying the collision and explosion just now was. It contained such dense energy. Human, I must kill you. The sea god tiger's eyes were cold as he roared from above. He was almost going crazy because more scales had fallen off his body. He shot out 7 or 8 scales in one go. All of them were covered in blood-colored patterns. They glowed and interweaved with one another, forming a terrifying energy tempest. Boom! This time, 7 or 8 scales flew over at lightning speed. They linked up with the natural energy of the heaven and earth and triggered a huge tempest. With a loud bang, the mountain peak Chu Feng was standing on was directly shattered. He rushed out amidst the dust and arrived at another mountainous region. These scales possessed great destructive power. Chu Feng believed that this sea god tiger's bloodline was extraordinary. That was because ordinary birds and beasts would find it difficult to revert to this degree. He had obtained the information hidden in his ancestors' blood. You can't leave. Your head will be my trophy. The sea god tiger's voice was very cold. He flapped his wings rapidly as he followed Chu Feng. It wholeheartedly wanted to kill this opponent and wash away the stain on its body. Ever since it was born, there had never been an opponent it could not kill. Sick cat, do you want to run around naked? Take off all your scales. Who are you trying to impress by acting like a hooligan here? Chu Feng shouted. Roar! The tiger's roar shook the sky. At the same time, blood clouds surged in the distance, and the green gourd shook violently. Near the mouth of the gourd, 5-colored light began to gush out, accompanied by the sound of iron chains. Vaguely, one could see a 5-colored light wrapping around a woman, struggling to break free from the mouth of the gourd. However, colorful metal chains were wrapped around her body, restraining her and suppressing her at the mouth of the gourd. It was extremely hazy and indistinct. 5 colored lights surged, making that region more and more strange. As for the surroundings, blood energy overflowed. At this moment, the marine human Luo Tian finally stopped attacking and jumped down from the gourd. He was filled with unwillingness, helplessness, and a bellyful of regret. He let out an angry roar and fled into the distance. This madman had finally stopped. He no longer dared to snatch the green lamp. That bronze lamp had risen into the air and left the range of the gourd's mouth. It sprinkled down specks of light which enshrouded the mouth of the gourd. It seemed to be suppressing the emergence of an ancient, evolved being. Even that crazy marine human had fled, but the sea god tiger didn't stop. He wanted to kill Chu Feng at the final juncture. Chi, tens of densely packed golden scales shot out and enveloped Chu Feng. "It's over!" the sea god tiger roared. His voice was so loud that it reverberated for hundreds of kilometers and caused the mountains to tremble. Clang! Chu Feng circulated his mysterious breathing technique and unleashed the Xingyi fist. He extended his true forms and merged them into the demon ox and demon flood dragon fist. This complicated combination caused that misty bell to reappear. He was dodging and trying his best not to collide with the golden scales. If he couldn't evade, he would use the bell of primal chaos to block them. Many parts of the sea god tiger's body were drenched in blood. That was because the shedding of the scales was equivalent to injuring his own body. Chu Feng knew that the sea god tiger was going to fight him to the death. He was also going all out in preparation to meet this final enemy. He quietly picked up the diamond chakram. This was the only opponent he could throw out without fear of falling into the hands of the marine race. The group of sea beasts near the green calabash had all fled. Not a single one was left behind. "I'll give you a chance. Become my servant. How about it?" the sea god tiger said coldly as he charged down and looked down at Chu Feng. "Help the tiger do evil?" Chu Feng sneered. His eyes turned cold as he said, "Come and accept your death. You don't know how to cherish opportunities. You can die now." The sea god tiger's eyes were cold and his smile was sinister. His entire body was glowing with golden light. There was a dagger in his claws which suddenly lit up like a blazing flame. Boom! During this short period of time, energy surged up in the sky and poured down in torrents like a volcanic eruption. Glaring golden radiance drowned out the entire mountainous region. The source of everything was that golden dagger. Its baleful aura surged into the sky as if it was about to tear the heaven and earth apart. One could see a hazy giant tiger emerge from the golden dagger. Its feet seemed to be stepping on the starry skies as it roared and pounced toward Chu Feng. The sea god tiger had used his ultimate weapon. He couldn't wait any longer and wanted to end this battle as soon as possible to kill Chu Feng. That was because the green calabash was becoming increasingly dangerous. Blood energy pervaded the air and enveloped an area of several kilometers. That ancient evolved being was about to escape. This made everyone's hearts palpitate. "Human, you dare fight me with your abilities? I can kill you with a raise of my hand. Die!" the sea god tiger roared. He had seen Chu Feng's golden Arhat talisman used up and didn't believe he had any more of such ancient artifacts. Now was the time to strike like a thunderbolt and reap his life. Strands of divine light appeared in Chu Feng's eyes. His physical energy was restrained as he charged into the sky with the diamond chakram in his right hand. Boom! The golden dagger came crashing down. Boundless energy boiled as it smashed towards Chu Feng. It was like a golden mountain, but also like a boundless ocean as it slapped down. Chu Feng was taking a risk. He faced the golden ocean with the diamond chakram in one hand and drew in the energy waves. This ultimate trash weapon could absorb energy and increase its weight. This kind of change was mysterious and puzzling. In the past, Chu Feng would pour energy into the chakram, and throw it to kill his opponent. Now, he was taking a risk by drawing in the enemy's energy and pouring it into the diamond chakram. Immediately, the shiny bracelet became snow-white and resplendent. Buzz! The diamond chakram's weight rose sharply. In the blink of an eye, it had reached tens of thousands of kilograms and was still increasing. This process was fairly dangerous because Chu Feng was drawing in the opponent's energy with the diamond chakram. A moment of carelessness and he would be blasted to death. This required a high level of control over energy. Of course, the most important factor was the uniqueness of this ultimate trash weapon. The sea god tiger was astonished. At first, he thought he could kill this human easily. Who would have thought the terrifying golden energy released by the golden dagger would be absorbed by the snow-white bracelet? At this time, Chu Feng was suffering from the violent impact. It was impossible for all the energy to be drawn in by the diamond chakram, and there were still large golden waves crashing down. But comparatively speaking, it was much weaker. Even though blood was seeping out from the corner of his mouth, and his body was swaying violently, he still managed to endure it. "Kill!" Chu Feng roared. He could feel the energy released by the golden dagger receding, and the tiger phantom had long since disappeared. Apparently, it was running out of energy. He swung the diamond chakram with all his might and hurled it out. Even Chu Feng could clearly tell how heavy the diamond chakram was. In any case, it was much heavier than usual and it was strenuous for him to hurl it out. In order to maintain its extreme speed, he had exerted all his strength to the point where his arms were aching. He increasingly felt that this bracelet was extremely odd and special. It couldn't be considered trash at all. Boom! A huge explosion took place in the sky. The explosive power of this bracelet was simply too terrifying. The sea god tiger had long since realized something was amiss. He turned around and fled, but the diamond chakram was simply too fast and closed in the blink of an eye. Chi golden scales fell off the sea god tiger's body and shot toward the diamond chakram in a bid to block it. He didn't dare use the dagger because he was afraid that it would be smashed apart by the terrifying bracelet. Dozens of blood-veined scales lit up and then exploded. However, they couldn't stop the diamond chakram because the energy contained within was too terrifying. This was especially true since it was shockingly heavy. After being struck by Chu Feng at full force, the momentum was world-shaking. Chu Feng was certain that even if a towering mountain were to block his path, it would still be crushed if struck by the diamond chakram. The sea god tiger made use of the shooting scales to shift his body sideways in a bid to evade. Chu Feng also leapt high into the sky and chased after the diamond chakram. He exerted all his spiritual energy to gently nudge the diamond chakram from afar. This weapon was simply too heavy, and he had no way of controlling it completely. However, he could now fine-tune it and change its direction. Boom! The void exploded as the diamond chakram, shrouded in torrential radiance, pressed down on the sea god tiger's body and had already come into contact with his tail fur. Clang! The sea god tiger was furious. He used his spiritual energy to shoot out the golden dagger to block this great killing weapon. Crack! The diamond chakram was indeed stopped, but the golden dagger was no longer protected by energy. It became very dim and finally broke. The sea god tiger was furious. A great killing weapon that he could use was destroyed just like that. This caused him great pain, especially since the danger wasn't over yet. The diamond chakram's momentum was too ferocious. It was only slightly obstructed and continued to spin until it came into contact with his tail. It was simply impossible to evade and had long since closed in. Bang! He swung his tail with all his might and struck the diamond chakram. In the end, a large section of his tail was snapped off with a pft sound. It broke off in midair and drenched in fresh blood. The scales, dagger, and tail were all powerful weapons. However, they were all damaged at the moment. After 3 collisions, the diamond chakram finally slowed down and changed its direction. Of course, it was still spinning at an extremely fast speed. The diamond chakram came into contact with the sea god tiger's leg and directly shook off the scales. It then tore off a large piece of flesh so deep that the bone could be seen. Only then did the chakram brush past the tiger. The sea god tiger was furious. He had suffered serious injuries. His tail had been broken, and he had lost several hundred kilograms of flesh. This was not only painful but also humiliating. Chu Feng landed on the ground after making some minor adjustments to the diamond chakram. At this moment, he was chasing after the tiger with all his might to retrieve the diamond chakram. The sea god tiger's eyes were frighteningly cold. He roared furiously as he gave chase. He also wanted to catch that bracelet and snatch it away. Boom! The terrain here was vast and lacked mountains to obstruct him. Chu Feng overtook the sea god tiger at 5.5 times the speed of sound and charged into the dense forest. He had already discovered the diamond chakram after spreading out his powerful spiritual energy. The sea god tiger wasn't slow either. He also arrived rapidly but was still one step too late. He roared furiously and turned around to run away, afraid that he would suffer another blow. Chu Feng estimated the distance between him and the sea god tiger with the shiny bracelet in hand. It was a bit far and he was worried that he wouldn't be able to hit the tiger. The sea god tiger decisively retreated and charged toward the edge of the space. He didn't dare delay any longer because he had been gravely injured but also because the lady in the azure calabash had broken the first divine gold chain. Chu Feng found that piece of tiger leg meat that weighed several hundred kilograms and that broken tiger tail. He also broke into a mad dash and chased after the sea god tiger. Sick cat without a tail, where do you think you're going? One man and one tiger ran frantically toward the edge of the space. Clang! Behind them, the lady in the azure calabash was glowing with multicolored radiance. The second chain on her body was pulled taut and then broken. Chapter 301. You sick cat without a tail, where do you think you're going? Chu Feng shouted incessantly along the way. This angered the sea god tiger so much that he wanted to turn back and fight to the death. He had never been bullied like this before. It was fine that he was defeated, but the other party was unforgiving. He kept shouting along the way as if he was afraid the whole world wouldn't know. Fortunately, everyone else had retreated and only the two of them were left behind. Otherwise, he would really want to find a hole to hide in. It was too shameful. More and more mountains appeared along the way. Naturally, Chu Feng's path was blocked. He wasn't as fast as the sea god tiger in the sky and was gradually left behind. Sick cat, I'll give you a chance. Be my mount and I'll bring you to taste the splendor of the world, Chu Feng shouted. F***CK. The sea god tiger was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He wanted nothing more than to kill Chu Feng on the spot. He couldn't help but curse out loud. Finally, the sea god tiger disappeared without a trace. Chu Feng felt helpless. Since he couldn't fly, he had no choice but to travel on foot. The sea god tiger rode on the wind and lightning like a supersonic flying machine. He crossed the vast sky and arrived at the edge of this space. There, he descended along the gourd vines and successfully escaped. The space below wasn't very big. Many marine race members were still gathered here and hadn't left. The sea god tiger's tail. Some of the sea beasts were shocked out of their wits. That was because the sea god tiger was simply too powerful. He was invincible among them. In the end, he had suffered such heavy injuries. Many of his scales had fallen off and his golden glow had dimmed. A large chunk of flesh was missing from his hind legs, and even his tail was broken. Could it be that the ancient evolved being in the azure calabash has escaped? Someone couldn't help but ask. They thought the sea god tiger had encountered an ancient great demon. Let's go. The others panicked after hearing this and wanted to rush out immediately. "Where's the Octopus King?" someone asked. The sea god tiger's expression was unsightly. He didn't say a single word and charged straight out of the space. The others seemed to have realized something after seeing this, and their expressions changed. "He lost to that human?" They didn't delay and charged out together. There was no need to linger since important characters like Luo Tian and the sea god tiger had come out. A group of people followed the energy tunnel and rushed out of the dilapidated Taoist temple. A group of experts from the continent had already come out. They stood not far away, their killing intent surging. "Oh my God, where's your tail?" In the distance, the Manchurian tiger was making a big fuss after seeing the sea god tiger drenched in blood and missing his tail. "I'll kill you!" The sea god tiger glared and was about to charge over. An expert of the marine race immediately pulled it back, not allowing it to act rashly. That was because a group of continental experts had gathered together, and they had a common enemy. They had always wanted to take revenge. Now, the group of super experts on the continent had more or less recovered. With the help of the demon refining fruit, they were full of vigor. Moreover, there had been a conflict just now. The sea race had experienced the might of the Buddhist staff, and it was simply undefeatable. Fortunately, the sea race had more powerful weapons, or else they would have suffered a great loss. "Where's Chu Feng?" the black yak shouted. They were somewhat worried. "He's dead," the sea god tiger said furiously. It felt suffocated. Today's experience was terrible, and it had a belly full of anger. There were many people at the base of Mount Longhu. Although they had retreated far away, they were still astonished to hear these words. The two oxen glared and were about to wave their staff. They didn't quite believe that Chu Feng had died in battle. They knew he possessed extreme speed and could still escape even if he couldn't win. "Sick cat, my mount, where are you running to?" It was at this time that a voice came from the dilapidated Taoist temple. Chu Feng had killed his way out. The marine race was immediately thrown into disarray. They simply couldn't believe what they were seeing. This human was simply too ferocious. What was he carrying in his hand? It was a tiger tail covered in dense scales. As for the base of the mountain, it was boiling over. The sea god tiger had been defeated? The news spread out immediately. Many people in the distance were taking pictures and finding it difficult to suppress their excitement. That was because today's events had been full of twists and turns. Previously, everyone thought the Wudong Grandmaster and the others had died in battle. Who would have thought they would come out alive? And a peerless expert like the sea god tiger had actually been defeated by Chu Feng and had one of his tails chopped off. This was definitely a world-shaking event. "Where's the Octopus King?" someone from the marine race shouted, wanting to verify it. "I killed him," Chu Feng said coldly. He looked up at the sky and felt something was amiss. Why was it snowing again? The snowflakes weren't big, but they fluttered down. In the distance, a group of marine race experts was furious but also incomparably apprehensive. Even a peerless expert like the Octopus King had been destroyed in the mysterious space of Mount Longhu? The group was shaken after seeing the tiger tail in Chu Feng's hand. With a swoosh, Yellow Cattle and the others rushed over with their staffs in hand. They were afraid that Chu Feng would suffer a loss. After all, there were many marine race troops around him. "Have you seen the Hollow Jade Temple Master?" Chu Feng asked in a low voice. That was because he hadn't seen the Hollow Jade Temple Master even after looking into the crowd. The Black Yak replied, "The Peacock King has already escaped. I wanted to give him a blow with my staff, but in the end, he flew away. I still haven't seen the Hollow Jade Temple Master." The Eight Visions Temple Master came over and told Chu Feng that the Hollow Jade Temple Master was gravely injured and his heart had almost been torn apart. He probably hadn't come out yet. In truth, it wasn't just the Hollow Jade Temple Master who hadn't come out. There were also a number of experts with 6 severed shackles who hadn't appeared. It was confirmed that they had died in battle. Chu Feng contacted Lu Tong and asked if there was any news of the Hollow Jade Temple Master. In the end, the answer he received was no. "I'll go find him," Chu Feng said. If he wanted to return the favor, he had to do it thoroughly. He had saved many people today, and it could be said that the escape of the group of experts was related to him. At this time, the marine race experts were no longer in the mood to fight. They were also contacting the outside world and seemed to have received a shocking piece of news. Their expressions changed and they couldn't help but glance toward the sea. "There's been a huge change in the sea." Very soon, the continent received the news. Even the people of Mount Longhu knew about it. "Let's go." The sea god tiger was the first to rush out. Although he was gravely injured, his speed was still extremely fast as he rushed into the distance. The other marine race experts also rushed down Mount Longhu. They couldn't wait to leave the continent. Chu Feng and the others didn't stop them. That was because the marine race still held the advantage in numbers and possessed great killing weapons. If they were to fight to the death, it would be difficult to say who was stronger and who was weaker. The most important thing was that everyone was mentally exhausted after such a long battle. The so-called dragon's spirit and tiger's ferocity were all forcefully maintained. Chu Feng asked everyone about the Hollow Jade Temple Master. He wanted to understand the situation clearly before entering the depths of the space. "It's too dangerous." Yellow Cattle stopped him. However, Chu Feng felt that there was still time. The lady within the azure calabash would have to spend quite a bit of effort to break free. In the end, Yellow Cattle entered the space with him once again. They could hear violent explosions from afar and see thunder and lightning flashing in the depths of the space. "We have to be quick. She's about to break free and has triggered a restriction. This woman is extremely powerful," Yellow Cattle said in a deep voice. "You go back, I'll look for her myself." Chu Feng dismissed him. Yellow Cattle didn't force him. He knew Chu Feng was faster and had only come here to confirm when the lady would break free. Chu Feng followed the clues provided by the others and followed them all the way to the Hollow Jade Temple Master's location. In the end, he found him collapsed in a mountainous region and was quite weak. That was because the Hollow Jade Temple Master's heart had been shattered in half and dozens of bones were broken. Even his forehead had almost been split open. His injuries were simply too severe. At this time, he had fallen unconscious. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stayed here and refused to leave. In truth, Chu Feng also saw a number of experts along the way. They were all terrestrial life forms, but all of them were dead. They had long since severed their sixth shackle and were killed in this space. In short, both the marine race and the continent didn't have it easy this time. A number of experts had died on both sides. The marine race's losses were related to Chu Feng because he had killed more. Chu Feng broke open the stone fruit and stuffed a piece into the Hollow Jade Temple Master's mouth. He then carried him on his back and left. There was no time left. A series of explosions arrived in the distance. That lady was a peerless beauty. She was surrounded by a dense multicolored mist as the divine gold chains binding her body broke one after another. Above her head, lightning struck down one after the other. In the end, she was able to resist all of them. Lightning couldn't kill her. Chu Feng turned back and was shaken. He saw that the dense lightning was pouring down like a torrential downpour towards the mouth of the calabash. The lady was almost drowned within, but she was still alive. Multicolored light circulated around her as though she possessed an immortal body. She had been suppressed for countless years, and yet she didn't die in the demon refinement grounds. This was enough to explain the situation. Chu Feng didn't dare stay any longer and ran as fast as he could. Boom! A loud explosion came from behind. The azure calabash was full of cracks and was about to explode. "Run!" At this time, the Hollow Jade Temple Master came to his senses. He glanced back and revealed a shocked expression. As Chu Feng fled along the calabash vines, He felt the earth and mountains shake behind him. The sound of thunder had disappeared and the azure calabash had completely exploded. Needless to say, that ancient evolved being had escaped. Boom! Chu Feng rushed out of the space below with the greatest speed. He ran along the energy passage out of the small Taoist temple and shouted at everyone, "Run!" In the blink of an eye, Yellow Cattle, Manchurian Tiger, and the others rushed down Mount Longhu. As for the other continental experts, they were already waiting at the foot of the mountain and were also retreating. Run! Meanwhile, the ordinary mutants and beast races also realized that a calamity was about to befall them and fled with all their might. Go! Chu Feng carried the hollow jade temple master on his back, as he called out to the top-grade experts, and ran into the distance. In the blink of an eye, Mount Longhu shook violently as though it was about to be overturned. Rocks tumbled down as the mountain emitted a blinding light. A girl with divine golden chains stepped out from the small Taoist temple. She was spotless and as white as jade, exuding a transcendent aura. Roar! At this moment, the entire Mount Longhu was trembling. Accompanied by the cries of dragons and tigers, a golden mushroom cloud rushed up from the summit and a terrifying aura blotted out the sun. In the distance, Chu Feng, the hollow jade temple master, the golden-winged Great Peng, and many other top-grade experts turned around. They were all apprehensive after seeing this scene. They knew that the realm of that person on Mount Longhu was too high. Boom! The entire Mount Longhu swayed and trembled thrice. The surface of the mountain was actually cracking and about to explode. One had to know that this was the ancestral court of Taoism, also known as the Tao capital. Its origins were too great, and the capital of a sect was actually about to be destroyed. On the summit, the golden mushroom cloud swept madly and transformed into a dragon and a tiger. They intersected and pounced towards the small Taoist temple to suppress it. Last time, a flying saucer had wreaked havoc here and was directly crushed by the mushroom cloud produced by the weapon buried under Mount Longhu. Now, this weapon was moving again to suppress and kill the ancient evolved beings who had just emerged. Boom! The dragon and tiger arrived. They approached the small Taoist temple and fiercely attacked. At this time, the peerless beauty stretched out a snow-white arm from the small Taoist temple. It was as fair as snow and didn't seem at all like it had been sealed for a long time. It was accompanied by a holy radiance and an auspicious aura. After the appearance of that lotus arm, the pressure caused the void to distort. She raised her white wrist and gently flicked her finger. That delicate hand was sparkling and white. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of flowers bloomed on Mount Longhu. They rushed out from the previous ice and snow and were full of vitality. But when her finger fell, the flowers withered and the plants withered. In just a single breath, it was as if an entire spring and autumn had passed. The scene was both sacred and terrifying. She raised her slender hand, and with a light flick of her finger, an earth-shattering energy fluctuation erupted. The dragon and tiger that were charging at her were actually scattered by a single slender finger. How is this possible? Everyone was shaken, including the top-grade kings. All of them were dumbstruck and in disbelief. That golden mushroom cloud had transformed into a dragon and a tiger. It was the embodiment of the power of the legendary weapon buried under the mountain. It was also the manifestation of the Taoist capital's hidden resources. This place was named Mount Longhu, and the manifestation of a dragon and a tiger was enough to explain the problem. But spring and autumn had passed in the blink of an eye and a period of time had passed. That woman was too mysterious and powerful to scatter the dragon and tiger. Following that, she took another step forward. Her calves were faintly discernible within her skirt. Although only below the knee was exposed, they were slender and flawless. They were as white as jade and were extremely beautiful. She wasn't wearing shoes and her jade feet were perfect. They looked very delicate, but a light stomp on the mountainous ground caused the majestic Mount Longhu to rumble and sway. Countless cracks appeared as if it was about to collapse and explode. Boom! In the end, the mountain split apart and a weapon emerged. It was suffused with holy splendor and curled up with white mist. The mysterious object under the Taoist ancestral court had been forced out. Everyone was overwhelmed with shock. The woman's sparkling jade feet gently descended just to force out this weapon. Was she not afraid of being killed? Chapter 302. Who could suppress her? From her current performance, it could be seen that she had transcended the mortal world. Her status in the ancient times must have been transcendent and her strength exceedingly high. What kind of identity did she have thousands of years ago? The ancestral court of Taoism, Mount Longhu. There were too many secrets here. Some said that this place was adjacent to the immortal court and that one could ascend to the heavens from here. There were also people who said that this was a mythical capital city. Once one stepped inside, they would be able to find divinity and even see the evolved beings of ancient times. Mount Longhu split apart. The item was suffused with a hazy white mist, carrying with it an energy that caused all living beings to tremble. It overflowed with mushroom clouds and surged towards the small Taoist temple. Be it Chu Feng or the other experts at the scene, all of them were shaken. What kind of power was this? They clearly knew how terrifying such a mushroom cloud was. It could easily destroy an entire area and extinguish all life. It was even more terrifying than a nuclear weapon, and now it had released so many of them one after another. It was simply horrifying. How could a cold weapon produce mushroom clouds like a nuclear weapon? In comparison, how much nuclear energy was there in the world? If it were to erupt, it would simply suppress the present age. There had never been a moment when everyone felt so insignificant. This ancient weapon was enough to destroy the world. Was this the method of the evolved beings? A cold weapon in their hands could grow with indescribable methods and reach such a terrifying level. The woman was transcendent. Her sleeves fluttered amidst the golden mushroom clouds. Her jade-like arms stretched out, sparkling and translucent. With a light tap of her hand, the sky was filled with golden lotuses that took root in the void. The entire Mount Longhu was filled with a faintly discernible sound. It sounded like a demonic saint was chanting sutras, but it also sounded like the prayers of the first people. It crossed time and space, traversed the ancient earth, and swept through the world of mortals. It was said that Buddha delivered all living beings from suffering, but now everyone felt that the peerless beauty seemed to be able to purify the world and make everyone submit. She pointed out with a finger and golden lotuses appeared in the void. They then transformed into 3,000 golden runes that transformed into ancient runes one after another. They seemed to be forged from metal and shone brilliantly as they enveloped the shattered Mount Longhu. The runes contracted and the chanting and prayers became increasingly divine. They were about to bind the weapon. The countless golden mushroom clouds shrank. When the lotus-like arm rose up, they seemed illusory and didn't explode. A slender, white finger gently pressed against the ancient weapon of Mount Longhu. All actions are like a dream, an illusion, a bubble or a shadow, like dew or like lightning. At this moment, everyone felt that it was unreal. "Run!" Yellow Cattle shouted. Even it was scared. It didn't know what kind of background this woman had or how powerful she was. It only felt that she was deep and immeasurable. It had to leave as soon as possible. In reality, everyone was only looking back as they fled. How could they dare to stop now? They swarmed in all directions like a swarm of bees. No one knew the outcome. They all fled. Chu Feng put the yellow cattle and the others into the pristine jade vase and ran for 3,000 kilometers in one go. He only stopped when he was far away from Jiangxi. After a while, a number of experts with 6 severed shackles finally caught up. "Thank you, Brother Chu Feng." The Mastiff King cupped his fist. In human form, he was a middle-aged man with thick black hair and spirited eyes. He was still as heroic as ever. But upon closer inspection, he was mentally exhausted. The journey to Mount Longhu was extremely dangerous. Without Chu Feng, he would have died there. Mastiff King, there's no need to be so polite. I'm indebted to you for taking care of me in the past. It's only right this time, Chu Feng said with a smile. Words cannot express my gratitude. The golden-winged Peng landed. Its entire body was golden as it nodded at Chu Feng. It was somewhat emotional. Just a while ago, it was looking down on the world and running amok in the east and west. It was difficult to find an opponent. Who would have thought that it would be ambushed by the marine race and almost die? Fortunately, Chu Feng came to its aid. Otherwise, it would have been a disaster. And this young man's strength was far inferior to its own not long ago. His rise could be said to be too rapid. The group of people stepped forward to express their gratitude to Chu Feng. This trip to Mount Longhu was truly too dangerous. The Hollow Jade Temple Master's expression was complicated. He had been carried on the back of the Eight Visions Temple Master. His heart was seriously injured and couldn't recover even after eating the demon refinement fruit. Among everyone, his injuries were the most serious and he had almost died. He patted Chu Feng's shoulder and sighed. I'm in the prime of my life, but after seeing you, I suddenly feel old. At this moment, he was actually somewhat desolate and depressed. This trip to Mount Longhu had dealt him a great blow. The three temple masters were known as peerless experts. One or two of them could rank among the top 10 experts of the eastern continent. But they had almost been completely wiped out. Chu Feng consoled. The temple master was just careless and fell into an ambush. The marine race used a powerful weapon to launch a sneak attack. Otherwise, which one of you here isn't a hegemon of a region? If we really had to fight, one of you would have been enough to kill many experts of the marine race. Those who survived were all top-grade kings. Some of the continent's experts had died in that space without leaving behind their names. The world was vast and there were many famed mountains. Many creatures had silently risen to prominence but were still nameless. Some experts with 6 severed shackles had died at Mount Longhu. This was a great blow to the east. Who was it that leaked the secret and sided with the marine race? Chu Feng brought up old matters. This was also something everyone wanted to know. Unfortunately, after careful consideration, they still couldn't come to any conclusions. There were, however, a few suspicious targets who had all died in that space. Everyone, farewell. We'll meet again in the future. The 2 temple masters of the Mount Shu Sword Palace were the first to bid farewell. Before leaving, they made an appointment with Chu Feng, inviting him to Sichuan to exchange pointers with the imperial sword technique. The mountain tortoise of Mount Kongtong apologized to everyone. Its shell was engraved with the golden 8 trigrams and its divine instincts were shockingly sharp. But this time, it had suffered a setback. The old tortoise admitted that it had long since sensed it but had been careless. The various hegemons set out one after another. All of them were in a complicated mood. This trip to the Tao capital had taught them a profound lesson. Now, they wanted to go back to rest and think things over calmly. The impact of this incident was too great. Would the marine race launch a large-scale attack? After all, they had failed on the verge of success and suffered a great loss. Would that mysterious lady walk out of Mount Longhu? This question made everyone's hearts palpitate. With her strength, she could walk proudly in the world. Who could stop her? Everyone felt a headache when they thought of these questions. The group thus dispersed. The news of the battle at Mount Longhu immediately spread and shook the world. Not only was the east shaken, but even the west was shaken. Within that mysterious space, the experts of the land and sea had fought, the various kings had been ambushed, and their blood had dyed the Tao land red. The sea god tiger was unrivaled as he hunted down the heroes, and now, Chu Feng had appeared. Any one of these matters was explosive news. The world was in an uproar. Boss rose to prominence in this battle and established his position. The clairaudient Ouyang Qing sighed. It wasn't just him and Yi Qingru who were sighing in admiration. The others were also discussing this matter. He had surpassed gods in one battle. Chu Feng had arrived at the most crucial moment during the battle at Mount Longhu. He had slaughtered a group of marine race experts, killed the octopus king, and hunted down the sea god tiger. His accomplishments were simply too dazzling. After this battle, this person can be considered to have completely soared into the sky. He can now look down on the world. Xiong Kun, Hu Xing, and the other beast race youths were also sighing. Chu Feng's strength was simply too astonishing. He had slaughtered enemies in one battle and rescued the trapped expert. His strength was truly extraordinary. Previously, there were people who said that Chu Feng could be ranked among the top 10 experts. Many people were unconvinced and felt that he didn't live up to his reputation. But now, no one dared to doubt that this was a battle achievement. So much so that some people said that he could stand shoulder to shoulder with the old Lama and perhaps fight for the position of the #1 expert on the continent. Many people firmly believed that as long as Chu Feng could sever his sixth shackle, the position of the #1 expert on the eastern continent would definitely belong to him. In Shuntian, Xia Qianyu was talking to Jiang Luotian. Luotian, why do I feel that Chu Feng has surpassed gods? He's practically invincible. Is this true? What, are you regretting rejecting him during the blind date? What blind date? It's clearly all a misunderstanding. Oh right, I heard that he attacked the Archaic Alliance and the Extraterrestrial Research Institute. Only Bodhi Biogenetics was spared because of you. Rumor has it that you two spent the night together. Is this true? Tell me about it. How did it feel? Xia Qianyu, if you keep spouting nonsense, I won't let you off. Sister, this brother-in-law's fame is too great. It's not a good thing. He's a womanizer, White Tiger mumbled. Lu Shiyun rolled her eyes and ignored him. All the major corporations were well behaved. The beast race members who were hostile towards Chu Feng also quieted down. The battle on Mount Longhu had shaken the whole world. Everyone was shaken. At this point, how could there still be people who were blind? The relevant parties were all afraid that Chu Feng would kill his way to their doorstep. It's snowing, not just on the famed mountains. It's happening everywhere. Chu Feng looked up at the sky. It was dusky and foggy, obscuring the sun. Snowflakes fell from the sky. It wasn't very heavy at first, but as time went by, the ground was covered in a vast expanse of whiteness. News arrived that the marine race had retreated hurriedly. It was because of the ripening of the sea god fruit, the fragrance of the dragonization fruit, and the multicolored eyes of the mysterious ocean. At the same time, snow began to fall from the sky. In the end, the sea surface was almost frozen. The ocean was their foundation. Hence, after receiving the news, the marine race experts put down everything and hurried back. They were nervous and even terrified. The world had changed. This time, the changes in the ocean were even more intense than on land. One day later, the world-shaking news arrived. The ocean was frozen, and all the sea regions were covered in a vast expanse of whiteness. Wind and snow were raging. Under such vile weather, the marine race members sank into the depths of the sea and completely disappeared. They were temporarily cut off from the outside world. At the same time, snow was falling on both the east and west of the continent. The snow grew heavier and covered the mountains and rivers in silver. At first, people felt that it was a novelty. This was especially true in the southern regions. Many had never seen such snow before. After one night, everyone's sense of novelty had disappeared. The snow blocked the roads and the world was covered in a vast expanse of whiteness. The atmosphere was terrifying. People were panicking. There were no clear skies in every part of the world. It was a world of ice and snow. This isn't scientific. How can it be snowing all over the world? Someone cried out in fright. However, this world was no longer scientific. Ever since the upheavals, many principles and events had been overturned. All kinds of signs indicated that this was no longer the Earth they could understand. Could it be that the great calamity before the great prosperity has arrived unexpectedly? When the snow and ice covered the mountains and rivers, reaching the height of a person, everyone was panicking. In just 1 or 2 days, many people had frozen to death. Now, it was impossible for the marine race to come to land. This world of ice and snow wasn't suitable for their survival. The whole world had sunk into despair. The ocean was frozen for tens of thousands of kilometers. The land was bitterly cold and the wind and snow were whistling. Everything had happened too suddenly. The Ice Age has arrived, someone lamented. This will be the most serious destruction of life in history, some biologists lamented. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.